Hi there, welcome to Excel 2019. My name is Cindy and I'm going to be your instructor and help walk you through this series of videos. I want to take a few moments and let you know a little bit about myself and what to expect as you walk through this course. I've actually been teaching Excel for quite a number of years now, over 15, and I teach everything from the basics all the way to advanced features. So hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of this information over to you quickly so that you can get started working on some of your projects. If you're brand new to Excel, make sure you watch these in order. If you try to watch them out of order, it may not make much sense to you. And go ahead and watch them again and again if you need to. I want you to have the concepts down before you move on to the next video. If you've been using Excel for a while, hopefully you'll get some tips, tricks, easier ways to do things. Well, let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to go into section 2 and talk about what's new in Excel 2019. Hey there, welcome back. We are still in Module 1 where I'm giving you an overview or an intro to Excel. I want to go ahead in Section 2 here and just talk real quick about what's new in Excel 2019. There's some changes you'll want to be aware of, especially if you've worked in older versions. The basics always work the same, but let's jump right in and I'll show you some of the new features. Let's start with one of the newest features in Excel, and that has to do with selecting. Now, selecting has always been around, but there's a little twist to it now. Before, if we wanted to select a range, we would go ahead and do that. We'd hold Control and maybe get another range. We could click over here, we can click over here, wherever we want. But if we wanted to, for example, deselect this one, we'd have to click away from it and then start all over again. What they've done now is you have the ability to deselect some of the cells you've already selected without having to start over. So let's say again I just select this and I hold Control and come over here, and maybe I get this and maybe over here. And now I say I really don't want these selected. As long as I'm holding Control, I can click and drag through those and they are gone and the other cells are still selected. That's a really helpful little feature. The next feature I want to talk about is the new accessibility checker. For people who maybe can't see very well or disabled, sometimes they can't see when there are little things that might be wrong in their spreadsheet, and Excel will try to help them out by letting them know where some of those things are and what to do about them. Let me show you how the accessibility checker works. For those people that are disabled or possibly visually impaired, sometimes if there are weird things going on your screen, you may not be able to see it very well. Excel has this feature called the accessibility checker, which will help look for those things for you and then give you a real quick one-click way to go ahead and fix those things. One of the things that you'll see in a moment is if you look at this word months, this is actually in a combination of cells A and B. They've merged them together, and someone that's visually impaired may not notice that right away. Let's go ahead and look at the accessibility checker. You will find that under the Review tab, and then right here it says Check Accessibility. It'll pop up on the right hand side and it's found a couple of things. Let's click on the first one and you'll see it sees those merged cells we mentioned and it tells me which cells they're in. Now I could come over here and actually fix it, but notice that I can actually click the down arrow and then I can go ahead and unmerge it right from here. So that's one thing I can do. Now I would have to go back at this point and actually move it over here if I want it to look right. Now Excel also found something else. Notice it says default sheet names. It doesn't like the fact that sheet 1 is named sheet 1. For someone who's visually impaired, they might not be able to read that very well because it's small. We can go down and rename this, and I can do it right here, and I can call it My Sales Report. And that way it'd be much easier for someone to actually see what's on that particular sheet. And that's how the accessibility checker works. Another feature that's new to Excel 2019 is the Translate feature. The Translate feature enables you to take selected text and translate it to a different language. Whichever cell or range of cells I have selected, Excel will go ahead and translate it into another language for me. Let's say I'd like to know what the word months looks like in Spanish. As long as I have that cell selected, I can go to the Review tab, choose the translate option, and you'll see the translator appear on the right. The very first time you do this, it will take a minute to load the translator, but then after that, it pops up just like this. Now here's the word months I have selected, and down here I can pick the language I'd like to see months translated into. So you can see that if I wanted Spanish, for example, I can choose it right there. You can also do it in reverse. If you happen to have Spanish text out here somewhere, see how I can flip this and it tells me this word is the Spanish word and this is the English word. And that's pretty cool when you want to work with translations and see what words look like in another language. Another new feature that Excel has is a new function called concat. We used to have one called concatenate, and that would actually merge two cells together in the same cell, and that is still there, but it's going away. So I want to show you how this works because it'll be the same with a couple of additional new features. We used to have a feature called concatenate, and what concatenate would do was take two cells, like maybe Sarah Kling here, and merge them together in the same cell. There are times when you want to do that. Keep in mind, if you're going to sort and filter, you do want to keep these in separate columns, but let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to right click on column D and insert a new column there so that we can put our merged cells in. Now I'm going to start with the equal sign because I am writing a formula. I'm going to put CON, and that brings up all the functions that have CON in them. Now here's the old one, concatenate, right here. You can see it has a yellow, what we call a yield sign. That means that that particular function is getting ready to go away soon. This new concat has actually replaced it. What I'm going to do is double click on concat to stick it in there. And the first thing it wants to know is what's the first piece of text I want to merge. That would be Sarah. I'm going to put my comma, and then it wants to know what the second piece of text is, and that would be Kling in this case. And that's all I want. I'll go ahead and hit the enter key, and there's Sarah Kling. It's merged those two pieces of information together. Now you'll notice there's no space in there. In order to get the space, I just double clicked so that we can edit our formula. You want to click after that comma and before the C, because you're going to add an open quote, a comma, a space, a close quote, and then a comma. That tells Excel there's another piece of data in there, and the space in there is what I'm looking for. I'll go ahead and hit the enter key, and now you can see it's got the space. I can copy this down and have all of these. Now let me go ahead and delete this. The concat function also has an additional thing that it will do. Let's say that you want to take all of these, for example, and merge those into one cell. All we'd have to do is come over here and start with our equal sign. We'll put our concat in again. And now what we'll do is select all of these and hit the enter key, and now you'll see that it's actually put those all in one cell. Now there's no way you can go back and put the spaces in unless you manually do it, but you'll see this goes on and on and on forever, especially if you had a long list like this. So that's what the concat feature will do for you. Those are just a few of the new features that are in Excel 2019. As we go through this series of videos, I'm going to point out some of the other new features, and we'll see how to use those as well. Let's go ahead now and jump into section 3, where I can give you a course overview, and that way you know what to expect as you go through this course. Hey, this is Cindy. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be covering throughout this set of videos. We're going to start at the very beginning. I'm not going to assume you know anything. We're going to go over the screen itself, get you familiar with terminology, what are some of those pieces and parts, how those buttons work, and then we'll jump right in and start creating what we call an Excel workbook. Sometimes people will call these Excel sheets, and they're really not sheets because the sheets are actually in the workbook. The file itself is called the workbook. That's the terminology we're going to be using. We're going to go all the way through. I'm going to show you how to set up a workbook from scratch. We're going to talk about how to work with those different sheets. We'll go through all the formatting options. How do you print those borders? We're going to go all the way through and create some formulas as well. A formula is basically a mathematical calculation that you can have Excel do, and that's the beauty of working with any kind of spreadsheet or workbook, is being able to do those mathematical calculations. Let's go ahead and just jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and start by giving you an overview of the Excel window first so you'll know exactly what we're doing as we move forward. Let's move over into section 4. Welcome back. We are working in Module 1, and in this module we are getting an introduction to Excel. We're all the way down to section 4 now, where I want to give you an overview of the Excel window. It's going to be very helpful for you, especially when you get started, if you know where to look for things and some different terminology that we're going to use in a lot of these videos. Let's go ahead and flip over to Excel and I will show you how to get started. Let's go ahead and start at the top left of your screen and we'll work our way down. The first thing I want to point out is this whole line right here, which is what we call the Quick Access Toolbar. We're kind of getting away from the term toolbar, but you'll notice that we have one left here in Microsoft Excel, and it has a few of the common options that you're going to use on a regular basis. Get really familiar with the very first one, that left arrow. That is your undo. If you make a mistake, you're going to be able to undo that mistake. You have an arrow to the right of it, which if you click on it will give you a drop-down list of all the things you've done. If you wanted to click at any point on that list, you could undo everything from that point up at the same time. There's also a redo. That's the arrow that points to the right. Redo allows you to bring back one at a time those things that you have undone. A couple of other ones just to be aware of. This one is your Save button. If you happen to be working in this file and you just want to hit the Save button, you can do that at any point. Also, there's a quick print option right there, which will allow you to just print your file. You'll notice there's a down arrow to the right, and this lets you customize your Quick Access Toolbar because you may have some buttons here that I don't have and vice versa. You can see that if you click on one, it adds it here, or if you uncheck it, then it takes it away. One that I want you to add is the email button. If you happen to use Outlook for your email, you will love this little feature because what it allows you to do is go ahead and create a message right from here and attach this file. And we'll talk more about that in a later module. The next thing I want to point out is the fact that this whole bar all the way across is what we call your title bar. You'll notice that currently it says Book 1 and it lets me know I'm working in Excel. Book 1 is the name of a blank workbook. When you're working in Excel and you first turn it on or you click New, you're working in what we call a blank workbook. Sometimes people call Excel files worksheets. They're not worksheets, they're workbooks with sheets inside of them. You're going to see at the bottom of your screen a sheet 1, that's the actual worksheet. And by clicking the plus sign, I can add as many worksheets as I would like at the bottom. But the file itself is called a workbook. Once you decide to save this file, you will give it your own name and it'll be reflected right here in the title bar. Now over on the right, you do have your minimize, restore, and close that will let you make the window smaller, or if you want to close it, you'd be able to do that as well. The next thing I want to point out across the top are your tabs. You can see that you're currently on the Home tab because it looks white, but notice you can click any of these tabs to go ahead and see what's called a ribbon below it. When I click on Home, for example, this whole line across is called the ribbon. And on each ribbon you will find groups of buttons. This is called the clipboard grouping. Each group name is right here at the bottom. Most groups, not all, have a little arrow on the bottom right. You'll notice that each group has different options. You just click the buttons to get to the options, but what if there's an option here that falls under that group name and you don't see it here? That's when you click the arrow to get to those additional choices. You'll find that once you're in what we call a dialog box, you can go ahead and close it with the X at the top. If you click the File tab, that'll take you into what we call the Backstage View. We're going to look at this over in section 6, but I just wanted to show you that if you happen to click there, hit the left arrow and that'll take you back. Underneath your ribbon, you're going to see what we call the Work area. This is where you're going to actually type your text or your numbers or your formulas. You're going to see that your work area is divided into columns which go up and down. Your columns are labeled with a letter at the top. You have 16,384 columns available to use. That's quite a few columns, so you're not going to run out of space there. Now your rows that go across, notice they're labeled with a number over on the left like this. You've got 1,048,576 rows. You are really not going to run out of room, I promise. And that's all on this first sheet, sheet 1. If you add multiple sheets with this plus sign like I mentioned, each sheet will have the 16,384 columns, the 1,048,576 rows. The way each sheet is set up, you'll notice that the intersection of a column and a row is what we call a cell. And when you click there, that cell will have a green line around it. We call that your active cell. That's how you know which one you're going to be typing in. You'll notice that each cell here has a name. We refer to that name as a cell address. A cell's address will be the column you're clicked in and the row you're clicked in. For example, this one here would be C3, and you'll need to reference that when you start writing formulas, so get really familiar with that. You'll notice on the bottom right-hand corner of your active cell is a little box. We call that your fill handle. Your fill handle will do a couple of different things. It's going to let you copy whatever's in that cell, and it's also going to give you a list of some predefined items, and we'll go over some of these in a later section as well. Like I mentioned, each cell has a name. That name will be reflected right here in the name box. You can see when I click over here, this is D2, and it says D2 in this name box. And this name box does more than just tell you the name of the cell you're clicked in. You're going to see later that you can actually select groups of cells, which are called ranges, and give them names. The X will allow you to cancel your entry. The check mark will allow you to accept your entry, and then we're going to talk about functions later on in a later module, and that's where you're going to go when you want to start writing some of your formulas. Whatever's in your cell you're clicked on shows up in the formula bar up here. Your cells can hold three things. They can hold text, numbers, or formulas, and a formula is a mathematical calculation you write to get an answer. You're going to notice on the right hand side of your screen that you have a scroll bar so that if you need to scroll up and down you can. And you also have one at the very bottom of your screen in case you need to scroll left to right for some reason. You also have three buttons at the very bottom that are your views. And your views are just different ways to look at your file. You want to stay in your normal view most of the time, but you're also going to be using page layout from time to time. And you're also going to use what we call the page break preview from time to time. I'm going back to normal, and the last thing I want to point out is your zoom at the very bottom right. You can zoom in to make this a little bit larger or zoom back out to make it a little bit smaller, and that's just a view. That's all that is. Well, that's a quick overview of how the screen itself works. What I'd like to do now is take a few moments over in section 5 and talk to you a little bit about how the mouse works, because you're going to find that whatever the mouse looks like, it will do different things. Let's go ahead and move over to section 5. We're still in Module 1 and we're all the way down now to Section 5. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the different features that the mouse has. It's going to be important in any program you work in to recognize the different ways the mouse changes what it looks like, but especially in Excel. Let's go ahead and flip over and I'll show you the 4 different ways your mouse will look in Excel. There are 4 different ways your mouse will look when you're working in Excel, and let's start with this one. When you see a white cross like you see here, you're going to use that when you're trying to select one or more cells. If I click in any cell, that's called selecting a cell. That means that's the active cell now, the one you'll actually be typing in. If I need to select multiple cells, I'm going to place that white cross right in the middle of that cell and drag straight down or across, and that's called selecting a range. We'll talk about ranges a little bit later, but ranges are basically a group of adjacent cells. If you click away from those, you will deselect your range. The next thing your mouse will look like is these black crosshairs that you see right here. Now I got that by pointing to the little box in the bottom right hand corner of that active cell. This is called the fill handle. The fill handle actually will do two different things in your computer. The first thing is there are some lists that are pre-built in Excel. Those lists are days of the week, months of the year. If I type any day of the week in this cell, let's say I put Friday in here, and I drag this down, you'll see it will continue the list for me. I can also go to the right or left and it will do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and delete those. If you have something in a cell that's not part of one of those predefined lists, and this could be numbers, text, anything, it will actually copy whatever's in that cell. Let's say I put the number 32 in there and I drag straight down. Notice it just copies 32. The reason it doesn't count is it doesn't know in what sequence you want to count, and we will talk about how to make it do that a little bit later, but for now, just know that the fill handle will copy whatever's in that cell. This is going to be one of your best friends in Excel. There will be times when you write formulas that you'll want to copy that formula, and this will just do that for you. The next thing you'll notice is that if I point my mouse around the edges of my active cell, I get this white arrow with a little cross behind it. That's going to allow me to pick up whatever's in this cell. Let's say I had that 32 in there again. Notice I can just point around the edges and I can drag this information where I'd like it to be and just drop it off, and it will move that information to that new cell. Those are the different ways that your mouse will actually work in Excel. What I'd like you to do is pay particular attention as we go along to this, and you'll see that this will make life a lot easier for you in a lot of different situations. Let's go ahead now and move over to section 6, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how that Backstage View works. I will see you in just a few minutes. Alright, we're still in Module 1, and I want to go ahead and wrap up this particular module with Section 6 and talk to you a little bit about the Backstage View. The Backstage View is an area that you can go into where you've got a lot of different options, like if you wanted to save this file, or if you want to create a new one, or even if you wanted to go and change some of the options in Excel, you'd be able to do those things in the Backstage View. Let's flip over to Excel and I will show you how to get to the Backstage View and all the options. When you're looking at the tabs across the top, you'll notice the very first one says File. By clicking on File, that's going to take you into what we call the Backstage View. In the Backstage View, you'll notice it automatically defaults to the Open option. This is where you would go if you wanted to open an existing file. You will be able to look through these different places here or browse your computer for that particular file. You would see any workbooks you've already created here. You could actually double click and open one if you'd like, or you can look through the folders and find a file that way. Back up above Open is the New option. If you wanted to create a brand new workbook, you could come in here and choose the blank workbook, or you'd be able to look at some of the templates that are in Excel, and you'll see there are a lot of different calendars and budgets and different things like that. They're great ways to start, and that way you don't have to set the whole thing up from scratch. They're templates you can use by typing over the information there. You have some save options that we'll be talking about over in Module 3. You have the ability to print. You can actually share this file with some other people if you'd like. You can export this, you can publish this, or you can close this file. If you close the file, you're not closing Excel, just this particular file that you're working on. There's also some other options at the bottom, and I want you to notice the one that says Options, because that's where you're going to be able to go to change a lot of the options that are in Excel, and we'll be doing a lot of that in a later module. But right now, I just want you to know that if you click the File tab at the top, this throws you into what they call the Backstage View. To get out of it, just hit this arrow that points to the left, and you're back in your workbook. Well, that's going to wrap up Module 1, and that's giving you a quick lay of the land here. What I'd like to do is actually go ahead and get you started on creating some new workbooks. Let's go ahead and move over into Module 2, and we'll get started. Welcome to Module 2, and we're talking in Module 2 about how to create your workbooks specifically from scratch. I want to go ahead and in this particular section, which is Section 1, talk to you about how to type in text and numbers and get the basic layout of your spreadsheet ready to go. And that way you'll know how to set something up from scratch. Let's go ahead and flip over to Excel and I will show you how to get started. One of the things that people often say to me is I don't know how to actually get started with a new blank workbook, and it's really pretty simple. What you want to do is decide if you want column headings at the top. A column heading would just indicate what type of data is below that particular column. You can also have row headings. That means if you put something here, for example, it would tell you what's in the row across. You can have a combination of column headings and or row headings, or just one or the other. That's totally up to you. It doesn't really matter which row you start on. You do have some area above row 1. That's called your header area. So don't feel like you have to start down in row 3 so you have some extra space there. I'm just going to start on row 1. Your cells will actually hold 3 separate items. They will hold text, they will hold numbers, and they'll hold what we call formulas. And a formula is basically a mathematical calculation that tells Excel what to do to give you an answer. You can do super simple math, like if you want to add some numbers, or if you want to do some sophisticated analysis, things like that, you could do that as well. But let's start really easy and put in some column headings. I'd like my first column to say the word months, and because I'd now like to type in B1, I'm just going to hit the Tab key on my keyboard, and you'll see Tab always moves you to the right. Enter always moves you down. This column, I'm going to put in the word sales. Column C, I'll put in the word expenses, and in column D, I'll put in the word totals. You'll notice that after totals, I didn't hit any key on the keyboard. That's why you see my insertion point blinking there. And I want to show you that if you hit this little check mark, that's just another way to accept the entry. Let's say underneath the word months, I want to put some actual months of the year. I want to put January, February, and March, and we'll use the abbreviations. I'll just put in Jan. And if you remember back in Module 1, I talked to you a little bit about the fill handle. That's the little box on the bottom right-hand corner of your active cell. Remember, if you get the black crosshairs like this, that's called the fill handle, and you can hold your mouse and drag down until you want to stop. I want to stop when it says March out to the side, and you can see it's filled it in now. Let's say in A6, I want to put the word totals. You'll notice that when you type text in, the text lines up to the left side of each of the cells you've typed it in. That's where it lines up by default. You can change that, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Right now, I want to put some numbers in underneath my sales and expenses. I'll say that January's sales were 150. Then I'll say that February is 175, and we'll just say it was 225 for March. I'm going to click over in C2 and put the expenses in. I'm going to say it was 125, 150, and we'll say 210 here for March. And you can see I just hit the Enter key to go down in that particular case. You'll notice the numbers are considered generic. There's no $sign, no .00, none of that. You're going to have to tell Excel what your numbers actually represent. And we'll get to that, but for now, just know that these are the numbers we're putting in. Now let's say I've got the word totals here, and I have the word totals here. And what I really meant to do up here was put in the word profits. Now I could hit delete on my keyboard to get rid of that, but I really don't have to. I can type the word profits right over it, and when I enter, I've got new text. Just be really careful that you're typing in the cell you mean to, because you can type over your text accidentally. The next thing I'd like to do is go ahead and add up these sales. So why don't we go ahead and flip over to Module 2, and I will show you how to write some super basic formulas in Excel. Now that we know how to actually set up our spreadsheet from scratch, we've actually typed in some numbers and some text. I want to show you how to go ahead and create some super basic formulas. A formula is a mathematical calculation you use to actually add up numbers or any kind of math you want to do with the numbers you've got. Let me go ahead and flip over to Excel, and we're going to keep going with our spreadsheet, and we'll add up those sales and those expenses. A couple things just to know about formulas. Formulas can be on the same sheet as the data. In a few minutes, we'll add up our sales and just put the answer right down here. But you may have the data on this first sheet and want to put your answers over on another sheet. You can certainly do that. You can also put your formulas in a totally different file, and we'll be doing some of that a little bit later as we go along. So formulas can be on the same sheet as the data, on a separate sheet or in a separate file. The thing to remember is wherever you click the mouse, that's where your formula is going to show up. If I click right here, that's where it's going to be. If I click over here, that's where it's going to be. There are a couple of keys on the keyboard that you'll want to be aware of before we start working, because these are going to help you when you're writing your formulas. I'm going to go ahead and pop up a picture of my keyboard so you can see it, and I'll point to some of the keys for you. First of all, if you have a numeric keypad on the right like you see here, you're going to see this plus sign, which is for addition. The minus sign here is for subtraction. You've got this little star, which is your multiplication. And this slash is division, so they're all right together. If you don't have your numeric keypad on the right, you can find these same buttons right up here. Here's your plus, you've got your subtraction, your multiplication, and then you're going to see your division is right down here. You also need to be aware of these open and close parentheses above the 9 and the 0. We'll be using those, and we're also going to be using the caret symbol, which is above your 6 right here. So just be aware of those when you're working, because you're going to be using those to actually do the math. The other thing is, you'll notice there's an equal sign right here. All formulas must start with an equal sign, no exceptions. If you don't have the equal sign, it will not do the math for you. Alright, let's go ahead and write some formulas. I'm going to leave that up for a few minutes, and I'm going to click over here in B6. I'd like to add my sales, and I want the answer to be in B6. That's why I'm going to start there. Remember, I told you that all formulas start with an equal sign. You must type that in. Now what we're going to do is basically add the cells that we'd like to actually have Excel add for us. Now I could type in 150 plus 175 plus 225, and I would get the right answer. The problem is that if I change the numbers in these cells, the answer won't update. Instead of actually typing the numbers, you're going to use the cell addresses. The first one, the 150, is in B3. Notice I can type it, but I'm just going to click here, and that way it inserts it in the cell for me. Now I'm going to type my plus sign because I have another one I'd like to add to this. I'm going to click in B3, and then I'm going to hit plus again, and then I'll click in B4. And that's all I have that I'm going to be adding. If you happen to have a plus sign at the end like this, then you're going to get an error message. I'm going to hit the enter key because I'm finished with this formula. And here's the little error message I just mentioned. It basically says there was a typo. I had that plus sign at the end, and it thinks this would be the formula I do want. It is, so I'll just say yes. And you'll notice now that it has moved me down to the cell below where I was, and I have my answer back up in B6. Now I'm going to click back in B6, and let's go look at this formula. I'm just going to double click in it to get back into it, and you can see it took out that plus sign at the end for me. If you've written formulas a little differently, then that's okay. Just kind of bear with us because we're building from the ground up, so you'll know why you do what you do. Think about this too. If you've got 1,000 numbers you want to add, do you want to go plus B2 plus B3 all the way to 1,000? Probably not. So we'll learn some other ways to write formulas using what we call functions or words that tell it what to do. For now, I'm going to hit the enter key so that I have my answer there. I can do the same thing over in column C. I'll just start with the equal sign. I'll click in C2, hit the plus sign on my keyboard, C3, hit the plus sign on my keyboard, and then C4. And once I'm finished, I'm going to hit the enter key, and you can see I've got the answer of 485. Something I want you to be aware of. 485 is not what's in that cell. That's the result. The formula that you see right up here is what's actually in the cell. Same thing over here. You can see there's a formula in that particular cell. Let's say that I wanted to figure out my profits over here for January. Basically, to do that, I'm going to take my sales minus my expenses. All formulas have to start with an equal sign. I'm going to click on my sales for January and subtract my expenses and just hit the enter key, and you can see that the answer is 25. I can go down the list and do the same thing with each one of these. I can take my February sales minus my expenses. I can hit the enter key and I have 25, and then I'll do one more. We'll say in this case that we take our sales for March and subtract our expenses for March, and in this case we get 15. And if I wanted to figure out the answer down here, I can write the formula the same way I wrote it there. I'll go ahead and put my equal sign in. I'll add D2 plus D3 plus D4, and then I'll go ahead and hit the enter key, and I have 65. That's going to be a quick way to go ahead and write some super basic formulas here so that you can add and subtract some really basic numbers. We're going to go ahead and go now over into section 3, and I want to talk to you a little bit in section 3 about what we call relative references. Hey, welcome back. We're in Module 2, and this is Section 3, Relative References. We just got through creating some super basic formulas, and one of the things I want to show you is that the formulas are the exact same when you look at the columns across, and they're the exact same when you look at the rows down. And I want to give you an idea of what a relative reference is and how you would make use of that when you're writing your formulas. Let's go ahead and take out the profits for February and March real quick. And I want to take out the totals for columns C and D as well. We'll put them back in. Now let's go ahead and look at our cell B6 and examine that formula. I'm going to double click in the middle of it so we can see it again. And if you notice, we're adding B2, B3, and B4. Now we don't have a total here in column C. I can type it. We've already figured out we can write it by hand, but I'd like to use the fill handle to copy this. Remember that the fill handle's on the bottom right hand corner of the active cell, and one of the things it will do is copy whatever's in the cell. And we've already determined that a formula is there, not 550. I'm going to drag all the way across to column D, and you'll see there it just gives me all of my totals. I could drag this as far as I needed to all the way across. It's a quick way, if you already have the first formula in, to go ahead and copy that formula to the other columns across. I can do the same thing up here if I want to go up and down. I can drag the fill handle and go down to row 4 in this case, and now I've got my answers filled in. Now let's talk about relative reference. Remember, in this one the formula was B2 plus B3 plus B4. If I go to column C, the formula is C2, C3, C4, and the same thing over with column D. What is the only difference in these three formulas? The column. That's it. Excel knows that when you copy a formula across like we did using the fill handle, to go ahead and change the column so that the answer is correct. If we look at the rows up here, let's look at D2 real quick. That formula said B2 minus C2. Well, the one below it's the exact same, it's just the row is different. See how it references row 3? And the one below it would reference row 4? Again, that's the relative reference. There will be times when you don't want Excel to do that, and we'll learn later how to create what's called an absolute reference. So just keep in mind that the relative reference is when the Excel changes the column or row to make sure the formula is correct so you get the correct answers. Let's go ahead and move over into section 4, and I'm going to talk to you real quick about the order of operations. Hi, welcome back. We're in Module 2, and we are now down to Section 4, where I wanted to talk to you about the order of operations in math. And if you think back to middle school, maybe around 6th grade or so, our teacher taught us the order of operations in math, but most of us don't remember it. And now that we have to use it, well, we're going to have to relearn it. So let's go ahead and flip over to Excel, and I'll show you what the order of operations actually is. Math of any kind will always follow the order of operations. Excel will look through your formula, and if it sees anything in parentheses like you see here, it will do what's in parentheses first. There's no exceptions to that. Then it will look for any exponents, and that would be if you had 4 to the 2nd power, for example. Then it will look for any multiplication or division, and then addition or subtraction. I want to go ahead and give you a good example of why you need to write your formulas keeping this in mind, because if you don't write them correctly, your answers will be wrong and you won't even know it. I want to come over here to cell A8, and I'm going to go ahead and put in here April projections. What I'd like to do is predict what my April sales are going to be and also what my April expenses are going to be. There are a lot of ways to do this, but let's say that we want to take our first month and our last month and just divide by 2. That's all we want to do. I'm going to go ahead and put my equal sign in here. I'm going to have it add my first month plus my last month, which in this case happens to be B2 plus B4. And then whatever that answer is, I want to divide it by 2. And that's all I want to do. I'm going to hit the enter key and see what we get. Now if you notice, we got 262.5, and we can look at this very easily and tell that answer is not correct. But if you're working with a long list of numbers, it's not always that easy to eyeball it. Let's go ahead and examine what Excel did, and we'll see why we got that incorrect answer. I'm going to double click and open the formula back up. My first question is, do you see any parentheses in this formula? No. Do you see any exponents? No. Do you see any multiplication? No. Do you see any division? Yes. The first thing Excel did was this part right here. It took B4, which is 225, and divided it by 2. The only thing left to do was add B2. I didn't want to do that. What I wanted to do was add B2 and B4 together to get an answer and divide that answer by 2. So if you notice, what I've done is just enclose that B2 plus B4 in parentheses so that it would do that first. And now if I enter, notice I get a totally different answer. When I go back and look at this now, if I said, are there any parentheses? You can see there are, and it's going to add my first and last month together, get an answer, and divide it by 2. Let me go ahead and just do the expenses again just to show you one more time. I'm going to start with equals. I know that I want to add my first month and my last month together first, so I'll go ahead and close that in parentheses, and then I'm going to divide the whole thing by 2. And you can see in this case it's 167.5. Now I could practice one more, but I'm going to go ahead and use the fill handle and copy that across, and now you can see I have all of my answers. That gives you a quick overview of the order of operations in math. Remember, that's probably the most important thing about formulas. Always think about, is it going to automatically do what I want first? If not, enclose it in parentheses. And by the way, if you see a formula that has multiple sets of parentheses, it's always going to work from left to right. It'll add whatever's in the first set, then it'll do whatever's in the second set all the way across. You can also have parentheses inside of parentheses, which would look something like this. That's called nested functions. When you have something like that, it's going to do the inner ones first and then go back and do the outer ones all the way across. And you can have up to 10 levels of those. We'll see some of those as we move along as well. But that's your order of operations. Now that you know what that is, let's go ahead and finish up Module 2 and move over to Section 5, where I'm going to talk to you about working with ranges. We've made it all the way down to the end of Module 2 now. This has been the module about creating workbooks. This is Section 5, and I want to talk to you in this particular section about working with ranges. You're going to do a lot of different things with ranges. And a range is basically a group of adjacent cells that you might want to change the color in. It could be that you want to make them all dollars. It could be that you want to use ranges in your formulas. Let me go ahead and flip over to Excel, and I'm going to show you how ranges work. Let me show you what a range looks like if you had it selected. This right here would be a range. It is a group of adjacent cells. You can do a lot of different things with a range. It could be that all of the numbers I have selected here, I'd like to maybe make these dollars, for example. It could be I'd like to center them. It could be I want to cut and move them somewhere else. There's a zillion different things you can do with a range. You'll notice that if you have a range and you hit the Enter key, you stay in the range. The white cell is just your active cell. You can also use the Tab key to go to the right instead of going up and down. What you want to avoid if you're trying to work with a range is don't use the arrow keys on your keyboard, because notice it deselects the range, or if you just happen to click your mouse somewhere, that would deselect your range as well. Let me show you how to select a range. You're going to find the starting cell, put your mouse right in the middle of it. You want to make sure you have that white cross, and hold your mouse down and click and drag. Just make sure you let up at the ending cell. Now sometimes when you do that, especially if you have a lot of cells you're trying to select, you might be holding the mouse down and accidentally go way down the page or way up the page, and it may not get you exactly what you want. So here's another way to select a range. Click in the cell you'd like to start with, hold the Shift key on your keyboard, and click inside the cell you'd like to end with. That's a good way to always get exactly what you want. Now when you start writing formulas, you're going to have to use these ranges. If you saw this one written as an example, this would be cell B2 through C4. So it would look like this. It would say B2, colon, and then C4. That's the range you would be working with in this particular case. You'd be maybe adding these up, for example. Let me go back and select that same range real quick. What if I asked you to quickly tell me what these numbers add up to be? You might be able to quickly add this in your head, but here's what I want to show you. When you start working with formulas and using ranges in formulas, you're going to have a word in front of this B2 colon C4 to tell it what to do, because right now it knows the range, but it doesn't know what to do with the range. If you have a range selected, and remember that can even be two cells as long as they're adjacent to each other. If you look down the bottom of your screen, it tells me the sum equals 1035. I don't know if you can see that down there or not. But that's an example of a function or a word that we're going to use in our formulas later to tell it what to do. If I wanted to right click on this word sum here, you're going to see there are 6 what they consider to be the most common, and I could click on any of these to turn them on or off. So if I frequently wanted to see any of them, I could have them show up down here at the bottom just as a quick look. Now notice if I deselect, you don't see that down there at all. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap up our section on working with ranges. Let's go ahead now and move over into Module 3 because we need to talk about saving this work. We've done a lot to it and I'd hate to lose it. So let's go ahead and go over to Module 3 and talk about saving.
For the next section, you'll want to download the Excel course exercise files. Click the link below in the video details to get these. With these files, you can complete the exercises that are included with this free class. Finally, if you're enjoying this training, please leave us a thumbs up and some comments.
Now that we've completed Module 2, creating workbooks, I've got a quick exercise I'm going to have you do, and it's going to end up looking like this. I'll have the steps actually in a Word doc so that you can actually go through the steps one at a time. The first thing I'm going to have you do is start with a new blank workbook. Then I'm going to have you set it up this way where you have the month, sales, expenses across the top this way in row 1, and column A is going to have the first few months of the year. I want you to plug in these same numbers. Now the only numbers I want you to plug in are these, because these numbers, these, and these are formulas. What you'll end up doing over in D2 is you'll end up creating a formula that takes your sales minus your expenses to give you the profit. And then you can copy that formula down using your fill handle. Down on row 6, we're going to be creating a formula that adds all of your sales and then one for your expenses and your profits. And in row 8, you're going to figure out April's projected numbers using the order of operations that we talked about in section 4. When you're done with that, just make sure you know how to select ranges. You can just practice with a few of them. And I'll put a few in there that you can use to practice with in your Word doc. And that's all I want you to do. Don't close it because we're going to use the same file over in Module 3 and then you'll be saving it there. Good luck! We're working our way down and we're all the way now on Module 3, which is where we're going to talk about saving your workbooks. Once you create that new file, you're going to want to go ahead and save it so that you don't lose any of that information. We also wrote some formulas and we really don't want to lose those. After we save our work, we can always hit the save button whenever we want to go ahead and update that and save all of our work. Let's go ahead and save that particular file we've been working on so that we can find it next time we want to use it. Anywhere in the computer that you're working on a file that you'd like to save, you're going to see there are two options. There's going to be a save and a save as. The very first time you're saving the file, it's going to take you to the Save As window so that you can name the file and also tell, in this case Excel, where you'd like to save that file. If I'd already saved it once and I make any changes to that file, I'll want to hit the Save option frequently to update my work. If I forget to do that and I go to close Excel, it will ask me would I like to save my changes. Make sure you say yes, because the first time you say no, you'll wish you had done that. Now my first clue that this has not been saved is notice the name of the file is Book 1. Chances are if I had saved it, I would have given it some name that would help me remember what's in this particular file. You'll notice that when you're looking at your toolbar here, you do have a Save button right here, but you could also go through your File tab, which takes you into the Backstage View, and you'll be able to save here, and you'll have different formats you can save your file in as well. You'll notice on this list, here's your Save and your Save As. I'm going to choose the Save As option in this case. The first thing you'll notice is that it will show you any recent folders that you have been working in or any files, and you'll see them listed here. This is our first one, so we don't see anything listed here. The next choice we get is to save this to OneDrive. Now let me tell you what this is. You might have noticed that everything is going out to the cloud now, and that basically means that instead of saving your work on a hard drive or somewhere on your computer or a flash drive, people are opting to save those out in the cloud, out on the internet somewhere, so they can pull them up whenever they have access to the internet. Microsoft has something called OneDrive. It's free. You just sign up for it, you get a username and password, and that way you can save your files there, and if you go on vacation somewhere around the world, you can log into the internet and then be able to pull up your files. It's just Microsoft's version is all it is. If you've ever used Google Docs, it's very similar. It's just Microsoft's version. It's called OneDrive. You can choose to save this to your PC, which we're going to do. You could add a place, which has to do with adding a network, but let's talk about Browse for a moment. This is where you're going to save most things. You're going to use the Browse option. Browse allows you to look in your computer and find a place you'd like to save your file. If you decide, for example, that you'd like to save it in Documents, then you can go ahead and give it a name. Now you'll want to leave that .xlsx that you see there. I'm going to call this one my sales report. And as long as I know where I've saved it, then I'll be able to look for it and find it very easily the next time. I'm going to hit Save, and now you'll see that my title bar has changed to reflect my sales report. Remember, if I make any change to this, even just a space, Excel is going to ask me if I'd like to save it when I go to close it. So make sure that you actually do that. Now, after I've already made some changes to this, if I want to hit the Save button up here frequently, I can certainly do that, or go back to File and choose Save that way. Either way is going to work fine. It doesn't ask you a thing, it just automatically saves your work for you. Let me go back to File for a moment, and I want you to notice that you're going to have some other options when you're saving. You're going to be able to go down and actually share this. You're going to be able to export this. And I want to talk to you about some of those options, but we're going to do it over in the second part of this particular section, which is where we talk about file extensions and some other things you can do when you're saving your files. Alright, let's go ahead and wrap up Module 3. We've been talking about saving our workbooks in this module. This is Section 2, where I want to get into a couple things. I want to talk to you about file extensions, how to share, export, and also publish your files. We already talked about saving your file. If I hit the File tab, that'll take me into the Backstage View. And I went down to Save As, and I want to go ahead and browse, and I'll browse in Documents because that's where we just were. And here's the file that we just saved, My Sales Report. Notice at the end of it, it has an extension, .xlsx. This tells the computer this is a Microsoft Excel file, and to open it in any program that's compatible with Excel. I want you to notice that you do have other types that you can save your file as, and you may need these from time to time. For example, you might need the one that says CSV, comma delimited. Just so you'll know what this is, if you've ever seen a file that just looks like a line of text and it says name, comma, and then it says address, comma, and then the data is underneath and it's set up that way, that's what they call a CSV file. Sometimes when you export data, you'll need to save it in that format in order to be able to import it into other programs. Another one that you'll want to be familiar with is a PDF. If you ever want to save this file so that no one can actually make changes to it, you can save it in a PDF format. Now let me go ahead and close this because I want to show you that if you look over here, you've also got the option to share this. I can actually share this with other people that might be on my particular SharePoint server. If the SharePoint server has been set up at your company, then there are other people that might be working on the same file, and you can go ahead and share this with them and give them permission to do different things with the file. I can also email this directly to someone if I'd like. I can export this. Notice here again is the PDF option that I mentioned a few moments ago. You can actually create your PDF over here. You'll end up with the Excel file and the PDF file, both with the same name. I can also change the file type if I'd like, and this goes back to some of those we saw on the drop-down list just a few moments ago, like that CSV file that we mentioned. And the last one is to publish this. Microsoft has this feature called Power BI, and basically what that is it's a place where end users can go in and create their own reports, they can create dashboards, and they don't need to rely on the IT department to help them set all this stuff up. So if you want to collaborate on a meeting, for example, this would give you some interactive visualizations, and it's got some self-service business capabilities and things like that in there so that you can set it up all by yourself and maybe have a meeting with somewhere on the other side of the world. It's pretty cool how that works. It's called Power BI. Well, that's going to wrap up Module 3, where we've been talking about saving and some of these other options that you can do with your file. Why don't we go ahead now and move over into Module 4, and we're going to talk in this module a lot about working with larger workbooks and how we can search the file for different things and just basically manage a really large workbook. I will see you over in Module 4.
For the next section, you'll want to download the Excel course exercise files. Click the link below in the video details to get these. With these files, you can complete the exercises that are included with this free class. Finally, if you're enjoying this training, please leave us a thumbs up and some comments.
Module 3 was all about saving workbooks. What I'd like you to do is make sure that you still have your exercise open from Module 2. And then we're going to go ahead and save this. Just go to your File tab and come down and do a Save As. Make sure when you save it that you create a folder on your desktop, and then I want you to give it a name. Call it My Sales Report. You also want to make sure that you have the correct file extension. It should be .xlsx. Go ahead and look over some of the other options we talked about. We talked about sharing a little bit. We talked about the export and publish options. And just make sure you're familiar with those so that when you need to use them, you know where to go to find them. Once you're done, let's go ahead and head over to Module 4 and we'll talk about navigating workbooks. Welcome back. We have made it all the way down now to Module 4, and in this particular module I want to talk to you about navigating through your different workbooks. You'll need to know how to open files, and when you get them open, how do you work with some of those larger files and some other options I want to go through with you. This is section 1, and in this particular section I want to go ahead and talk to you about how to open your files in Excel. And if you're familiar with opening files in other programs, it's going to be very similar. Let's go ahead and flip over to Excel and talk about opening a file. We're currently working in the file called My Sales Report that we actually created. You do not have to close one file to open another. You can open as many files as you want at the same time and flip back and forth. However, I do suggest that if you are finished with one, that you go ahead and close it just so you don't have all these files open. Here's how you're going to open a new file. If you go to the File tab at the top, that's going to throw you into the Backstage View, and you'll notice the third option down says Open. If you remember when we were saving a file, we talked about all these different places that you could save a file, and opening is really the opposite of saving. You're going to tell Excel where to look and then which file you'd like to open. Over here, you're going to see a list of all the files that you've recently opened. If you wanted to open one of these again, you just double click on it here from this list. I wanted to show you also the little pen that you see over here to the right. If you want to actually pin this to the list, you can just click the little pen, and notice it moved it up under these pinned options, and those are files that will kind of stay at the top of the list for you for easy reference. Those would be ones you'd use often. But in this case, let's go ahead and browse, and I'd like to look in Libraries and in this folder called Documents where I have this Excel folder, and I'm going to open that up and I'll see all the files that are in that folder. I want to go ahead and open a particular file called Loan Workbook. You can either click once and then get onto the bottom and hit open right here, or you can double click on the file to open it. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in down at the bottom so that we can see this a little bit better. This is a file that actually will tell you a little bit of information about the loan that you have created. You can see the monthly payment is $400.40. And over here you've got the principal, the interest rate, and the term in months. Any of these can be changed. If you notice over in F4 where the monthly payment is, there is a formula there that basically says if I change any of these three numbers, go ahead and change my monthly payment. What if I want to borrow $20,000 instead of 18? And then let's say the interest rate was 5.7%. You can see how each time I made a change that it affected my monthly payment. If I look at the bottom of this file, there are a couple of sheets here. We're on a sheet called Terms of Loan. Anytime you'd like to flip to a second sheet, you just click the Sheet tab at the bottom, and now you'll see this one breaks out every month of the loan, principal, interest, all the way across. Now let me zoom in on this one a little bit as well. It's kind of small there. You can see here is your beginning balance. Here's the interest, the principal, and the remaining balance on this particular loan. What I wanted you to notice in this exercise is that this $20,000 is the same number, if I flip back to the terms of loan, that we had put in right here. Now someone could have typed that on each sheet and it would be correct. What they did is they went to the detail sheet for the 5-year loan and they put a formula right here. And in this particular case, if I double click and open it up, you can see that this formula basically says have this cell match the cell D3 on the sheet called Terms of Loan. And I want to show you how they did that because it's really fairly easy. Anytime you want a cell to match another cell, this is all you have to do. Remember, wherever you click, that's where the answer is going to be. And I want to hit the equal sign because I'm writing a formula. I want this cell to equal on the sheet Terms of Loan, and notice as soon as I clicked there, it put that in your formula for you. And then I want it to equal D3. Notice that's in the formula. That's all you do. Hit the Enter key, and that's done, and now they're linked. Let me try that one more time and show you how that works. I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to start with the equal sign. I'm going to flip to the Terms of Loan because that's the sheet that has the cell on it I want to equal. And then I'm going to click in the cell that I want it to equal, which is D3. And that's it. I'm going to hit the Enter key on the keyboard. That takes me back to the cell I was originally clicked in. And if I double click there, there's that formula that has the name of the sheet and the name of the cell. When you're looking at a formula and you see an exclamation point like you see in this one, that just tells Excel to change from a sheet tab to a cell. That's all that is. I want to go ahead now and show you a little bit about how to work with some of these larger files like you see here. Why don't we go ahead and flip over to section 2 and we'll talk a little bit about working with larger files. Welcome back. We are working in Module 4, and this is the module where I'm talking to you a little bit about how to navigate through your different workbooks. This is section 2, and I want to talk to you in this section a little bit about how to work with the larger files that you have. A lot of your files will be pretty small, and you'll be able to find what you're looking for pretty quickly, but you will have some that have lots and lots of data in them, and you need to know how to navigate and find different things you might be looking for in that particular file. Let's go ahead and flip over to Excel, and I'll show you how to work with those larger files. You'll notice in this exercise that I can't see all of the information on the initial screen. I need a way to actually go up and down and see the rest of the information. The easiest way to do this is to use the scroll bar that's on the right hand side of your screen. All you have to do is click on it, and then you'll be able to scroll up or down to see the data that you couldn't see initially. Some of you may have a wheel on your mouse, and if you do, use that wheel and just scroll it up or down that way. If you want to scroll left or right, you have a scroll bar at the bottom here, and that's going to let you go left or right and see data you couldn't see in the opposite direction there. The next way you're going to be able to move around is to use some of the keys on your keyboard that will take you to the top or bottom of your data. I want you to look for the Home key and the End key. Look over in your numeric keypad. If you look at the number 7, you'll see Home underneath. And if you look at the number 1, you'll see End underneath. If you're going to use those, you want to turn off the number lock so they become the Home and End buttons. Other than that, they mean the number 1 and the number 7. If you notice, I'm actually at the top of my screen already. I'm in A1, so I'd like to go to the bottom of this little table of data. If I hold down Control on my keyboard and hit the End key, notice I'll go to the bottom of that table of data there. Control End always takes you to the end, and Control Home always takes you to the top. If you use the Home and End key without the Control key, Home isn't going to take you anywhere because it means the beginning of the line you're clicked on. End will take you to the end of the line you're clicked on. So just know that you have those keys available if you want to actually use those. Another way to navigate is to actually type in the name box right here, the name of the cell that you'd like to go to. Now obviously you'd have to know that, but let's say I type in here column IV and I want to go to row 65,536. And I'm going to hit the Enter key, and now look where it's taken me, all the way down here. I'd like now to go back to the very top, so all I have to do here is type in A1 and hit the Enter key, and now I'm back to the very top. Anywhere you happen to be down in your workbook, if you want to go to the top again, you just hit A1 and hit the Enter key, and then you'll be back at the top there. Some other things you can do to search throughout your workbook is under your Home tab right here. If you go all the way to the end, you're going to see an option that says Find and Select. This is going to allow you to find certain words or maybe some numbers that might be in your workbook that you just can't seem to find if you scroll. Let's say I'm looking for the number 60. I'm going to choose Find from this drop down. I'm going to make sure I have the number 60 in here, and I'm going to choose Find Next. You'll notice it found the number 60 for me right there. If that's not the instance I'm looking for, I'm just going to hit Find Next again, and it will go find the next one. It's always based on where your mouse is clicked. If it can't find an exact match for you, it will let you know and give you a little message saying that it can't find anything. Now I want you to notice there's also some options here. If you want to look specifically within the whole workbook, for example, instead of just the sheet you're on, you could change that. It could be that you want to search by rows or columns, or you can have it look in formulas, values, or comments. Values is basically the number that results from the formula, and we haven't talked about comments yet, but you have the ability to actually make a comment that shows up on each particular cell here. The other thing is, if you're searching for 60 and it doesn't find it, but yet you happen to see it with your own eyes, try checking this box, match entire cell contents, and see if that helps you find it a little bit easier. You also have a replace tab here. That would let you type in specific text or some numbers if you wanted, and then replace it with something else that you specify here, and you would just hit find next and then find the particular instance you want, or you can say replace all of them or just replace them one at a time. I'm going to go ahead and hit close here and go back up to the top. That's pretty much how you're going to work with your larger files. Let's go ahead now and talk about some of the options that you have when you're working with these larger files, like the freeze panes option, for example. If you wanted to have these headings stay at the top so that you could scroll anywhere you want down in this file and still see the headings, you could use freeze panes. I will see you over in section 3 shortly. We are still working in Module 4, and this is Section 3, and this section is called Freeze Panes. There is an option in Excel that will let you freeze columns or rows so that you can keep those on the screen and then scroll down or across wherever you'd like and still see the headings on the columns at the top, or if you have row headings on the left, you can see them that way too. Let me show you how the Freeze Panes option works in Excel. You'll notice in this exercise, if I scroll down, then what happens is I don't see my headings anymore. So if I asked you which column was the interest paid, you really wouldn't know unless you scroll back up and you could see. We have the ability to actually freeze rows 1 through 7 so they stay on the screen all the time, and then I can take rows 8 and down below and scroll up anywhere I need to be. Here's how the Freeze Panes option works. I'm going to click in A8. Now the reason I'm clicking here is because when you turn on the Freeze Panes option, it's going to freeze any rows that are above where you clicked, and since I want 1 through 7 to click, I'm going to click in 8. It's also going to freeze any columns to the left in case you were trying to scroll left or right. We don't need that in this particular case, so we'll just click in A8 and just freeze rows 1 through 7. All you have to do is go up to the tab at the top that says View, and you'll see an option here that says Freeze Panes. Now when you click on it, you might get this drop down list. All you want is the top option, because if you notice, this one is just freezing the top row, but we want rows 1 through 7, and this one is just freezing the first column. So if you just click here, it's rows above and columns to the left that freeze. Now you should see a little small faint line under row 7 right there. That tells you what's above it is frozen. Notice now I can scroll with my mouse anywhere I'd like, up or down, and rows 1 through 7 stay right there so I can see my headings. Isn't that cool? Now this line is not going to print, just so you'll know. If you want to take the Freeze Panes option off, you don't have to be clicked anywhere special. You just go back to Freeze Panes, and now it says Unfreeze Panes. Now let's try it where we freeze both up and down and left to right. Let's say I click in C8. That means it's going to freeze 1 through 7 and also A and B. Now let's go back up and turn on the Freeze Panes option again. I'm going to choose Freeze Panes, and now you'll see that same gray line under row 7 all the way across, but also you'll see it to the right of column B there. Notice I can go up and down so I know what my column headings are, but if I needed to go left to right, I could also go across, and notice A and B stay. See that? So you can pretty much freeze this and see any two parts of the screen that you would like, and then scroll wherever. That's a quick way to freeze panes. Let me go ahead and turn that off. We'll unfreeze these. And the next little option I want to talk to you about is called the split screen option. Let's go ahead and flip over to section 4, and I'll show you how the split screen option works. We've been working in Module 4 where we've been talking a lot about navigating through your different workbooks, and we've looked at a couple of options like the freeze panes we saw over in section 3. Let's go ahead and look now at the option called split screen. What split screen basically does is allows you to see something in one part of your file and then something in another part that you normally wouldn't be able to see without scrolling back and forth. Let me go ahead and show you how to use the split screen option. This example is a great exercise because let's say I want to do something like this. Row 9 happens to be the first month of my loan, and if you notice, this cell right here shows the interest I paid, which is $95. I'd like to see how much interest I paid the last month of the loan, so I'll just scroll down, and it's down in row 68, and it's $1.81. But now I can't see the first month of my loan. I've got to scroll back up to see that. Well, if I split the screen, it will allow me to see both at the same time. I'm going to start by clicking in cell A8 because I'm going to put the splitter right above row 8 here. All I have to do is go up here where it says split. Notice I'm still on the View tab. I'm going to click on split, and now you'll see your splitter. It looks like this gray line right here. Now notice that I can put my mouse on the splitter and move it up or down. That splitter can just be wherever you want it to be. But what I really want you to pay attention to is the fact that you now have two sets of scroll bars. I've got a scroll bar above my splitter, and I've got a scroll bar below the splitter. So I can really be in any two sections I'd like at the same time. I'm going to scroll down a little bit so I can see the last month of my loan, and voila, look, here's month 1 and here's month 60 in this particular case. If you want to turn the splitter off, you can do one of two things. You can either go up and hit split again, or you can drag the splitter to the top of the screen. That'll turn it off as well. Now let's say I started by clicking in C8. This is going to put the splitter above row 8, but also to the left of column C. Let me go back up and hit split again, and now you can see the splitter is up and down right here, and then across this way. So this means I can do something very similar. I can look at row 1 and scroll down on the second part and look at row 68 in this case, which is month 60. I can also go left to right. If there's some reason that I don't want to see maybe the first couple of columns there, I can scroll to the right like this and notice that column A and B stayed right where they were. So really, you've got a lot of flexibility as far as looking at any two areas of the screen that you would like when you're working in Excel. All I have to do to turn these off is just go back and hit split up at the top, and we are good to go. Just make a note that if you save your file with the splitter on or with the freeze panes option on, it will stay that way so that when you open the file the next time, you're ready to go. That's really all I wanted to tell you about navigating through your workbooks. This is going to wrap up Module 4. Why don't we go ahead and go over to Module 5, where we're going to talk about a lot of the page setup and the print options. We've been working in Module 4 where we've been talking a lot about navigating through your different workbooks, and we've looked at a couple of options like the freeze panes we saw over in Section 3. Let's go ahead and look now at the option called Split Screen. What split screen basically does is allows you to see something in one part of your file and then something in another part that you normally wouldn't be able to see without scrolling back and forth. Let me go ahead and show you how to use the split screen option. This example is a great exercise because let's say I want to do something like this. Row 9 happens to be the first month of my loan, and if you notice, this cell right here shows the interest I paid, which is $95. I'd like to see how much interest I paid the last month of the loan, so I'll just scroll down, and it's down in row 68, and it's $1.81. But now I can't see the first month of my loan. I've got to scroll back up to see that. Well, if I split the screen, it will allow me to see both at the same time. I'm going to start by clicking in cell A8 because I'm going to put the splitter right above row 8 here. All I have to do is go up here where it says split. Notice I'm still on the View tab. I'm going to click on split, and now you'll see your splitter. It looks like this gray line right here. Now notice that I can put my mouse on the splitter and move it up or down. That splitter can just be wherever you want it to be. But what I really want you to pay attention to is the fact that you now have two sets of scroll bars. I've got a scroll bar above my splitter, and I've got a scroll bar below the splitter. So I can really be in any two sections I'd like at the same time. I'm going to scroll down a little bit so I can see the last month of my loan, and voila, look, here's month 1 and here's month 60 in this particular case. If you want to turn the splitter off, you can do one of two things. You can either go up and hit split again, or you can drag the splitter to the top of the screen. That'll turn it off as well. Now let's say I started by clicking in C8. This is going to put the splitter above row 8, but also to the left of column C. Let me go back up and hit split again. And now you can see the splitter is up and down right here and then across this way. So this means I can do something very similar. I can look at row 1 and scroll down on the second part and look at row 68 in this case, which is month 60. I can also go left to right. If there's some reason that I don't want to see maybe the first couple of columns there, I can scroll to the right like this and notice that column A and B stayed right where they were. So really you've got a lot of flexibility as far as looking at any two areas of the screen that you would like when you're working in Excel. All I have to do to turn these off is just go back and hit split up at the top and we are good to go. Just make a note that if you save your file with the splitter on or with the freeze panes option on, it will stay that way so that when you open the file the next time, you're ready to go. That's really all I wanted to tell you about navigating through your workbooks. This is going to wrap up Module 4. Why don't we go ahead and go over to Module 5 where we're going to talk about a lot of the page setup and the print options.
For the next section, you'll want to download the Excel course exercise files. Click the link below in the video details to get these. With these files, you can complete the exercises that are included with this free class. Finally, if you're enjoying this training, please leave us a thumbs up and some comments.
Now that you've gone through Module 4 and you learned how to navigate your workbooks, let's go ahead and just make sure you're okay with actually navigating through workbooks on your own. I want you to start off by opening a file called Loan Workbook. And once you get it open, I want you to just pay attention to the fact that you have two sheets at the bottom. You have a sheet called Terms of Loan and also one called the Detail Sheet for the 5-year loan. The sheet Terms of Loan is where you're going to be able to list your principal amount, your interest rate, and your term in months, and that will change the monthly payment if you change any of this. Over on the Detail Sheet for the 5-year loan, what we're looking at here is each month of the loan in a list broken out by beginning principal balance. You've got the interest paid, the principal paid, and the remaining principal amount. Once you've looked through this, I want you to take a few minutes and navigate. Navigate all the way to the bottom of this. The last column and last row that information is in F70, and then you can navigate back to the top. Just get really familiar with navigating, whether you use the scroll bar, whether you use your keyboard. It doesn't really matter as long as you know how to get around. Once you've done that, what we want to do is make this cell right here, which is C9, equal on the sheet Terms of Loan, whatever's in D3. You're going to have to write a formula to do that. Remember that the formula starts on the detail sheet right here in C9 because that's where you want the answer to appear. You're going to write a formula that links C9 back to Terms of Loan D3. If you forget how to do that, go back and watch Section 2 again. That's where we had written the formula to link these two sheets. Once you're finished with that, go back to the detail sheet for the 5-year loan, and I want you to freeze rows 1 through 7 at the top so that you can scroll down and see all the months of your loan without your headers disappearing. You can go ahead and take the freeze off once you've done that. Then I want you to go ahead and click in cell A8 and put your split option on. Remember, the split option is the one that will allow you to see two parts of your screen at once. I want you to be able to see the first month of your loan, which is row 9, and the last month of your loan at the same time on your screen. Once you've been able to do that, you can go ahead and take the split off, and then if you want to close the file, feel free to do so. That's going to wrap up Module 4, Navigating Workbooks. Once you're done, go ahead and move over to Module 5, and we're going to talk about the page setup and the print options in Excel. We are now in Module 5, and in this particular module, we're going to talk a lot about what we call the page setup and print options. There are a lot of options that you're going to want to do with your page. For example, you might want a header and footer. Those actually appear in the margin areas of your workbook. You're also going to want to maybe make some comments, maybe go ahead and print this out and you want it to fit on the page and look nice, and that's all the stuff we're going to talk about in this particular module. This is Section 1, and we're going to go ahead and get started with what we call headers and footers. you're going to see that headers appear in the top margin of your worksheet. Footers appear in the bottom margin of your worksheet. You can put things in your header or footer like dates, if you want to put file names, maybe your name, anything you want you can put in there. You can't tell right now if you have a header or footer set up because you can't see the margins. If you go down to the bottom where your views are, the middle view is called Page Layout. And if you click on Page Layout, then you can actually see what the entire page is going to look like when you actually print it. You can now see that there is a header set up here, and if you look at the bottom of the page, there's a footer set up here as well. And typically what Excel will do is it will actually pull the file name and put it in the center of the header, and it will pull the actual page number and put it in the center of the footer. You can change any of this that you want. You can go in and type whatever you want on the left section, the center section, or the right section. And the same thing down with your footer. Something to note, when you type something in a header or footer, it's going to be on every page. You'll notice this is page 1 and it's got the name of the file there, and if I scroll down I'll see page 1 in the footer. And if I look at page 2, it's got the exact same header and it'll have the same footer except the page number will change, and that's because there's a little coding that you can set up to have it do that. If you had a 3rd, 4th, or 5th page and you add those, then you would have the same exact thing. Now, there's a different way to go in and look at these headers or footers, and I'm going to flip back to the normal view for a moment. That's the first view at the bottom. And one thing you'll notice is when you've been into that page layout view and you come out, you'll see a page break right here. That's just automatic. If you go up to your Insert tab and go all the way to the right, you're going to see right over here it says Header and Footer. Now when you click on it, at first it looks like you're back in the same view. But what I want you to notice is that you now have some options for your header and footer right here that you didn't have just clicking on the page layout view. Notice you're in a contextual tab, and that's a tab that appears only when you need it. And in this case it's header and footer tools. Notice if I click down on the page, I don't have that tab anymore. But if I click back in the header or footer, it'll pop back up. So don't think it's gone if you happen to be clicked in the middle of the page and it's gone. There are some things here I want to point out to you. First thing I want to point out is that you have some options up here to put in page numbers, the number of pages, the date, the time, file name. You can kind of see all those options right there. Let's put in a few things in our header. Let's go ahead and take out this center section. We'll just delete it totally. And then let's put over here the actual current date. You can type a date, which is fine, and that means it will always have that date. But if you use this one here where it says current date, that means that today it will have today's date, tomorrow the file will have that date, the next day it will have that date. So it's a way of changing the date and always keeping it in sync with whatever day it happens to be. Now I put a little space in there, and I also want to put in the current time. And you can see it's just some encoding that tells it what to do here. Now I'm going to hit the tab key to go to the center, and I'll hit tab once more. I could just click over there if I wanted to. Let's say over here that what we want to do is go ahead and put in our name. Now let's go down and look and notice if the second page has that same information, and you can see that it does right here. Now let's talk about the footer a little bit. I'll click down here where it says page 1. I can certainly leave that there, but let me go back up and pull up the header and footer tools again. And I want you to notice that I can go ahead and say page 1, and if I want to I can put a space and say of, and then have it put in the number of pages. And that way it'll say page 1 of 1 or page 1 of 2, however many pages there happens to be. I'm going to go ahead and click over here and look at it, and now you'll see it says page 1 of 2, and page 2 says page 2 of 2. Alright, let me go ahead and click back in the header or footer again and pull up my header and footer tools. Let's go all the way back to the left where it says header right here. These are just some pre-designed headers that I could pick from if I really didn't want to customize this myself. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to put over here the name of the file and also the page number. So you can see what it did right there is the file name and the page number. It overwrote what I manually typed in. Now the other thing you can do is in the footer section you can do the same thing. You can have something like prepared by, the date, and the page number. Now if you notice now it's got prepared by, and then it's got the date, and it's also got the page number here. And that's going to be the same on page 2. Remember, if you type it, then it's going to be on every page like that. If you actually go in and use some of the coding for page numbers and time and so forth, then it will update those page numbers and the time. Notice I can also put a picture in here if I wanted to. And I can also navigate a little bit. If I don't want to click on the footer, I can say go to footer and it will actually take me to the footer of the page. Now, one thing that you're going to find when you go to print multiple pages, some people think that it's not professional for page 1 to say page 1 on the bottom. So you can actually take that off. You'll see right here it says different first page. And all that does is when you check the box, page 1 is not going to have a header or footer, but all the other pages will. See how page 2 has the header and the footer? Let me go back. The other thing is you can have different odd and even. If you want all the odd pages to say the same thing and all the even pages to say the same thing, you can set that up as well. And you can also align your page margins with the actual margins of the page if you wanted to do that. So there's a lot of different things you can do with headers and footers here. If you want to get out of it, you just go ahead and click inside your spreadsheet somewhere and then go back to the bottom to the first button, which is normal. And then that's how you work with your headers and footers. Let's go ahead now and go over into section 2 and we'll talk about print titles and how those work. Welcome back. We're working in Module 5, and this particular module we're looking at all the page setup and the print options that are in Excel. We've already gone through headers and footers in section 1. Now we're in section 2 where I want to talk to you a little bit about print titles. You're going to have spreadsheets you want to print that have multiple pages. The first page may have the titles of your column headings, but then your other pages don't have any headings. You can actually set Excel up so that those headings print on every page. Let me show you how to set up your print titles. When we look at this exercise, you'll notice that rows 4 through 7 actually have your column headings at the top. But if you look at the second page, you're going to see there are no column headings. Let me go back down to the page layout view for just a moment so you can see what I'm talking about. Here's page 1 with our column headings. But notice page 2 does not have any, so if you printed this out, you really wouldn't know which each of the columns represented. I want to show you how to get it to print those 4 rows at the top of every page that prints out. Let me go back to the normal view. And let's go ahead and go over to the tab that says Page Layout. Now we're going to be talking about all these different options here in this module, but right now I want to go over to where it says Print Titles. What you want to do is where it says Rows to Repeat at Top, you want to click there and then come back in your spreadsheet here and select rows 4, 5, 6, and 7. You're going to do that by clicking on the actual row heading itself over here, and you can see that it put that right here for you. Let's go ahead and print preview from here and see what it looks like. Now this is taking us into the print option that we're going to talk about later, but I want you to notice here's page 1 with their headings, and to see page 2 you'll go all the way down to the bottom where you see the arrow that says next page, and then here's page 2. See the headings? And if you added additional pages, they would just have the headings automatically. To get out of this, I'm going to go back and hit the back arrow there, and that takes me back into my normal view. You can also print columns on every page if you had a really long document from left to right that we're going to print. And the way you would do that is you'd go back to Print Titles. But this time you would say Columns to Repeat at left, and then you would select those columns that you want it to be on every page that prints out. But more likely you're going to use the Rows to Repeat option. That's really all there is to working with your print titles. Let's go ahead now and go over into section 3 and we will talk about working with comments. We are working our way down through Module 5. We've talked about headers and footers already. We've talked about working with print titles. Now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about working with the comment feature that Excel has. You have the ability to click on any cell and actually put a comment in. And it's not going to be part of the actual spreadsheet that prints out. It's just going to be a comment that you can see on the screen. I want to go ahead and show you how to set some of those up, and then if you want to print those out, you could do that as well. You can have a comment on any cell that you'd like. All you have to do is select that cell and then insert your comment. Let's say that this is the interest paid and this is month 11 on the loan, and we'd like to make a comment at this particular cell that says to ask the bank about a reduction in the interest rate. All I have to do is right click and you'll see insert comment on the list. Now you'll notice that I can type anything I want in here and it has the name of the person who is logged into the computer. If you don't want that there, you can always just delete it. But I'm going to go ahead and put in here, see about a rate reduction. And I'll say this may change the rest of the interest paid cells. Now if I click away from the comment, you're going to see that the comment disappears, but there's a red indicator in the top right corner of that cell. If I just move the mouse over it, I don't even have to click, you'll see that particular comment appears. When I move away from it, it disappears. If I want to edit that comment, I'm going to select that same cell, right click, and then you'll see it says edit comment, and that will take me back in so I can make some changes. The other thing while I'm in here is you'll notice that you've got these squares around the edges. If you need to put your mouse on one of these and make the comment box a little bit bigger, or you need to make it smaller or change the size of it in some way, you can certainly do that just by dragging those different what we call sizing handles. I can also right click on that cell and actually delete the comment if I don't want it anymore. Now let's go ahead and go up to our tabs across the top, and I want to click on the tab that says Review. These are where the comment options are going this way, and there's your edit comment. We've seen how to do that. Here's a way to delete. But let's talk about these two real quick. You have the ability, if you've got multiple comments, to actually just move from one comment to another just by hitting the next or previous buttons. You can also show or hide your comments. And you can see when I click on that, then the comment appears and it stays there instead of moving away when I click away from the cell. I can also show all the comments, so if I have multiple comments, I would just see them all over the page here. A couple things that you're going to want to do. You may want to actually print these comments, and I want to show you how to actually do that. If you go back to the Page Layout tab, and we were talking about the page setup options earlier, notice that if you go right here to this little arrow, that this is going to take us into page setup, and earlier we were in here under the sheet tab. What I want to show you is under that same tab you have this comments option right here, and it currently says none. If I choose the down arrow, I can choose to put these at the end of the sheet, or my other option was as displayed on sheet. Let me show you what end of sheet looks like. And I'll print preview, and what you're going to see is that if you go down to the last page, you actually have a third page now. See how there's 3 pages? And what it does is on that last page it tells you the cell number, and then it just shows you what the comment says. Now let me go back and I'm going to show you the other option. I'm back under the Page Layout tab, Page Setup. I'm going to hit the arrow on the right there, go over to the Sheet tab. This time, instead of at the end of the sheet, I'll say as displayed on sheet, and then print preview that. And now if you go down and look, you'll see wherever the comment happens to be, that's where you're going to see it, and it's going to actually print just like this. Now let me hit the back button and show you one more thing. You'll notice that you can't see the numbers that are underneath this. All you have to do is click in there, and instead of using the sizing handles this time, get just on the border of your object there and just drag it somewhere off to the side, and that way you can see all the numbers that were underneath, and it does have this arrow that points to the cell that that particular comment refers to. That's going to be how your comments work. That's a pretty nice feature that Excel has, where you can make comments about individual cells. Let's go ahead now and go over to section 4, and we're going to look at all those different page setup options and get you familiar with them. We are working our way down through Module 5, where we've been talking about all the page setup and print options that Excel has. We've talked now about headers and footers a little bit. We've talked about your print titles, your comments, but there are so many other page setup options there that I just want to take a few moments and look through some of those and get you familiar with what's there so you'll know where to go if you want to do some of these different things. Let's go ahead and head over to Excel and let's look through those page setup options. You want to make sure you're on the Page Layout tab, and then we're going to be looking at all of these options here. Let's start with margins. Here are some pre-designed margins that you can pick from, and you can see that every page has 6 margins. There is a top, bottom, left and right, and header and footer. Notice your header and footer margins are always less than your top and bottom. If they were more, they would actually appear in the printed part of your page, and you don't want that. If you don't like any of these that they have pre-set up for you, all you have to do is come to the very bottom where it says Custom Margins and click there, and that'll take you into this page setup that we were in earlier. Now remember, the way to get directly here, you can actually go here to where it says Page Setup with the little arrow, and it'll take you into this one. Here's where you can change your top, bottom, left, and right margins again. And something else that'll be of interest to you is this Center on Page option. If you have a small spreadsheet you're working with and you print it out, it's always going to print in the top left. To make it a little bit nicer, you can center it on the page horizontally. And sometimes you may want to center something both horizontally and vertically. You can just choose both or none. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And that's how the margins option works. The next one I want to show you is orientation. When you print as you would normally think of printing something, that's what we call portrait. If you turn the paper sideways, that's what we call landscape, and sometimes you need that when you have a lot of columns left to right that you want to get on a page. The next thing is where it says size. You can always change the paper size. Normally you have 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper, but then there's legal and there's envelopes, and you can see these other sizes that you might want to use. The next one is called the print area. If you have a certain area that you're going to want to be printing and you don't want it to print the rest of it, you can set the print area. And basically what would happen here is you would go through and actually select, just by dragging down like this, the area that you think you might want to print, and then that's how you would set the print area. You can also go back and clear the print area, and then that way when you get ready to print, you'll be able to tell it that you want to print a page or something specific that way. Breaks is where you're going to put in page breaks or remove page breaks. Now normally what Excel will do is it knows how much will fit on a page and it will insert a break for you. But if you want the break somewhere else, you can certainly do that yourself. Right now you can see that it breaks here at row 52 right at the bottom. You want to put manual ones above the ones the computer generated, because you can't put more on a page physically. You can put less, but you can't put more. I would actually select one of the rows above the one the computer put in, and then I could go to breaks and say insert a page break. And then that will actually put a page break there for me, and you can see it there, and it got rid of the other one. And do you notice this one is a straight line where the other one was a green dotted line? That's how you know the difference between the ones you put in and the ones the computer put in. If you want to delete one, then go ahead and just select the row above and below, and you can go back to the breaks and say remove page break. And so there's lots of ways to put in page breaks or remove page breaks that way. Now let's talk about backgrounds for a second. This is really neat. You have the ability to take a picture that you might have already in your computer somewhere, or you can do a Bing search, or you might have one saved in your personal OneDrive. Let's say we do a search and we look for money. What will happen is that it's going to go out to Bing and it's actually going to look for any pictures that you have permission to use, and then you're going to go ahead and choose one and you're going to say insert. And now you'll see the background of your whole entire spreadsheet here is that picture of money. Now, this makes it really hard to read, but that is an option, and it does not print, by the way. It's only for viewing on the screen. Notice you can now delete your background if you wanted to do that. Now let me scroll back up to the top. We already talked about your print titles, so let's move over here to where it says width, height, and scale. And this is where you're going to be able to go ahead and shrink the width of your printout. If you want it to fit, for example, 2 pages, you can actually change the width of it, you can change the height, or you can change the scaling. Now, width and height are automatic, but you can go in and say you want to set it to 1 page, 2 pages, or whatever you want to set it to. Now, scaling, it's actually going to look at your page at 100%, and let's just say 1 column wouldn't print on that page, for example. It would actually shrink it so that you could get everything on 1 page. That's called scale to fit. Let's go back over here to page setup, because I want to go down here to this arrow and see if there's any options that we didn't have buttons for. On the page tab, here's our portrait and landscape that we talked about. There's your scaling we just mentioned. Sometimes if 1 column prints on another page, you might try the fit to option to see if it would make everything fit 1 page across and 1 page tall. You can change your paper size here. We already talked about margins, and we talked about header and footer. And we talked about a couple things under the Sheet tab. I did want to mention that you have the ability to print your grid lines right here. Sometimes people ask me, how do you print these lines around each of the cells? And those are your grid lines. But what you really want to do is print borders, not grid lines. Grid lines will print all of them that are on the page. You can also choose to print this black and white, what they call draft quality, or print the row and column headings, which would be this ABC or this 1, 2, 3 over here. You can also tell it how you'd like to print the page order. If you have 5 pages, maybe you want to go down first and then across, or across and then back down, whatever works for you. And that's going to be your page setup options right there. So you can see there's quite a few options there as far as your page setup. Well, let's go ahead and go over to section 5 now, and I'll show you how to go ahead and have everything fit on 1 page if these options we talked about up here don't work for you. Hey, we're still working in Module 5, and in this module we are talking about your page setup and print options in Excel. We're all the way down now to section 5, and I want to talk to you in this section about how to make everything print on 1 page. Because what happens often is you will set up your workbook and you'll go to print it, and 1 column prints on a 2nd page. Let's talk about how you make it all fit and look really nice when you print it out. I've got this exercise open that has several columns of information. If you notice, it has the name of the salesperson over in column A, and then it has figures for January through August, and the last column, column J, are the totals here. I want to look at it and see what it looks like if we go ahead and print it. I'm just going to go to the bottom and go to the page layout view, which is the middle view there. And you'll see that page 1 actually prints from the column that says name all the way over to the column that says July. But look how it chopped off August and totals, and it's going to print it over on this 2nd page. That's just not going to work for me. Let's look at some options that we can do to get everything to fit on 1 page for us. Let me go back down to the normal view and let's see what we've got. The first thought is that you may want to turn the paper from portrait to landscape. If I go back to the page layout tab here at the top, then I can change the orientation to landscape. But I will tell you that we don't have enough columns to make it actually look right. If I choose landscape, let's go look at it now. I'm going to go down and do the page layout. And you can see that I really have a lot of space left over here, and I could do a lot of things to take up that space, but this isn't really what I wanted in this particular case. Let me go back to normal, and we're going to change it back to portrait because that's what I want. The second option is I can go up and adjust this scaling right here. Right now it's set at 100%. I could go down and make it maybe 75% or 80%. The problem is that I don't know exactly which one's going to work, if that's going to be too small or too large. Let me show you what we can do, and it will actually adjust the scaling for us and get it set up perfectly. Here's what we're going to do. Let's go down to the bottom where our views are, and let's use the last view, which is your page break preview. I'm just going to click on that, and in this particular view you're going to see the page break right here. Also notice there's a page break right down here underneath the words Canadian Division. All you have to do is actually drag this dotted line even with the edge of the page, and you've actually just changed the scaling right here, and if you notice it made it 90%. Now I wouldn't know that automatically, so it knew that for me and it went ahead and adjusted it. If you notice the page break that's down at the bottom here is going to break up that Canadian division. Now I could drag this one all the way down to the bottom and fit everything on one page, but I can tell you just from working with this exercise so many times, it's too small. In this case, I think I'll just drag it back up above the Canadian division like that, and at least all of Canada will print together on the same page. And that's the easiest way to change your page breaks. Now obviously if you have a lot of columns left to write, that orientation might be the best bet for you, and then this may not work as good as it does right now. But when you've only got that situation with a couple of columns, then it works great. I'm going to go back to the normal view. And now we've got 2 pages and it's going to print perfectly. What I'd like to do now is talk to you a little bit about printing. So let's go ahead and head over to section 6, and I will talk to you over there real quick about printing your workbooks. Okay, welcome back. We're in Module 5 and we're going to wrap it up with section 6, where we'll talk a little bit about printing your workbooks. When you go to print your workbook, you're not always going to want to print everything that's in the workbook. Sometimes you want to print just one sheet. Sometimes you want to print just a particular section on that sheet. I want to go through and show you all the options that you have when you're printing your workbooks. When you get ready to print anything, you can go up and use the print that happens to be here on your icon bar, but if you really want all the choices, I suggest you go through the File tab and go into the Backstage View and print that way. When you click on the File tab, you're going to see an option that says Print about halfway down right here. And you're going to have lots of options when you're printing. The first thing I want to point out is this is where your print preview is, and you'll be able to go back and forth between the pages. Down at the very bottom it'll say page 1 of 2 in this case, and you can use the arrows to go back and forth to see how it's going to print. If you remember all those page setup options that we looked at in section 4, you can get to those in here as well. First of all, if I happen to click page setup right here, this screen will look familiar because we went through all of these options. A lot of these are in the page setup, but let me go back through those with you. First of all, here's your custom scaling. This is where we just went through in section 5 and talked about getting it on one page, and we adjusted the scaling to do that. You can set your custom margins here. We saw this earlier, and if we didn't like any of these, we could go to the custom margins and change it that way. The next thing is the paper size. Probably you want 8.5 by 11, but if you wanted to change it, then here's that option. You can turn the paper from portrait to landscape here. Now here's something you haven't seen yet, collated. Collated basically means that if you wanted 10 copies of this, it would print page 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 10 times. If it's uncollated, it's going to print all of page 1, then it'll print all of page 2. Here you can print one-sided, or if you have a printer that you can print on both sides, you can go ahead and flip the pages and you can print on both sides that way. Currently it's going to print the active sheet. That would be sheet 1 that we've been working on. And if we want to print specific pages only, we can specify that right here. So let's say for whatever reason you just want to print page 2, you would set it up like this. But if you don't do that, it's going to print all the pages on that active sheet. If I drop the list down here, I can also print the entire workbook. That means that any sheets that actually had printing on them, it would actually print. I could also print a selection. That would be, let's say I just want to print Australia and I had selected it before I came in here, then I'd be able to print just the selection. The next thing is the printer that you're going to be printing to, and you have all these choices available. This would be how many copies of this would you like. And then when you're ready, you would actually hit the print, and this would print right out the exact way that you want it. That's how printing is going to work. All of that has to do with your page setup and print options. We're going to wrap up Module 5 now, and let's move over to Module 6, where we're going to talk a lot about adding some rows, some columns, and cells into some of your existing workbooks. I will see you over in Module 6. We've actually gone through Module 5 now. We've been talking about the page setup and print options. I have a lot of things I want you to do in this exercise. Again, I'm going to have these in the Word doc, all the instructions, but here's what I want you to do. Go ahead and open that file we've been working with called Loan Workbook. And I want you to go to the sheet called the detail sheet for the 5-year loan. We're going to look and see if there are any headers or footers. And the way we're going to do that is, remember, at the very bottom, your second button is your page layout view. And if you click here, you can see that you just have the generic ones that come in Excel. What I want you to do is take the one that's in here out. You're going to add the date on the top right, and then go down to the footer, and I'm going to have you in the footer in the center where it says page 1 currently, put your name there. Once you've done that and you see it looks right, go ahead and flip back to normal view, which is the first view at the bottom. The next thing I'm going to have you do is add a comment. You're going to put a comment right here in C9, and I've listed the comment, which is, this is the beginning balance of this loan, over in the Word doc with the instructions. The next thing you're going to do is change your margins to 1 inch for the left and right. I'm going to have you center this on the page vertically, and then set rows 4 through 7 as print titles, so that every time you print a page, the titles for rows 4 through 7 will print. You're going to go ahead and print the entire workbook, and then go ahead and save and close the file. Great job, you've done a lot. Let's go ahead and move over to Module 6 when you're done, and we'll talk about working with rows, columns, and cells. We are working now in Module 6, and in this particular module, I want to talk to you a little bit about how to work with rows, columns, and cells in your workbook. This is section 1, and in this section I want to talk to you about adding and deleting rows and columns, and also how to add or delete cells. You don't necessarily need to add columns or rows to have more in your spreadsheet. What you need to do is add columns or rows in the middle of a table. Let me show you how all this is going to work. Let's take a quick look at the exercise before we start working with our rows and columns. This is a company called Books and Beyond. You can see that this is the Northeast region on this side, and this is the Mideast region on this side. For each region, it looks like they're tracking the salespeople for that region. It looks like they're tracking their figures for January through April. And then over here are your totals. And even though this one doesn't say totals here, that's what column G represents. If you look down at the bottom, it looks like they're actually writing formulas to add up all of their sales for each month. They've also got one for the average right here and the high right here. And in a later module, we're going to go through and actually write those formulas. But for now, let's talk about making this look a little bit nicer. Let's say that I'd like to put 2 blank rows at the very top of this. Now remember, I don't have to do that because we do have a margin area at the top, but just for the exercise, let's make it look a little bit nicer. The way you're going to insert rows is you're going to start off by selecting the number of rows you'd like to insert. You're going to select them by clicking on the row heading, which is the number itself all the way on the left. You'll see your mouse turns to this black arrow that points to the right, and you just click. If you try to do this, that is not a row. That's X amount of cells. So make sure you click on the row heading itself. Now I said I wanted to put 2 rows in here, so I'm going to drag down so I get rows 1 and 2 selected like this. Now the way you're going to insert these rows is you're going to go to the Home tab, And if you go all the way over here where you see the cells, you'll see this insert option. When you click the down arrow, you're going to have several choices as to what you'd like to insert, but one of these is to insert sheet rows. I'm going to click on that, and now you'll see there are 2 blank rows at the very top. The new rows always go above the one or ones you have selected. Columns always go to the left of the one or ones you have selected. Let's say that you like column G to represent May, and you want to push these over into column H. Notice when I select the G at the top, that's how I select the entire column. Again, to select multiple columns, I could drag across like this, but I just want one in this case. Again, I'm going back to that insert option, and this time I'm going to insert sheet columns. And you can see it pushed everything over to the right, and I have a blank column. Now for both of these, inserting rows and or columns, I could have right-clicked in the highlighted area and chosen Insert this way. If you want to delete a row or column, hitting delete on the keyboard is not going to do it. That deletes the contents of those cells you have selected. To actually get rid of the row or column, you're going to have to choose delete. Now again, I can right-click and choose delete, which is the easiest way to do it. But notice there's also a delete right next to insert up here, and you can tell Excel that you'd like to delete sheet columns in this case, or if you had rows selected, you would have an option to delete those rows. Now you know how to insert rows, you know how to insert columns. Let's talk a little bit about inserting cells. Let's say that I'd like to put a new salesperson in the northeastern region. And I'd like to put them on row 8 where I see Baker right now. Basically, I want to push everything from Baker down one. I'm going to select row 8, and I'm going to right-click in the highlighted area and choose Insert. And now you'll see that I have a space to put in my new salesperson. But if you look closely, notice there's also a blank row over here. And I didn't want to do that because I only want to put the new person over in the Northeast region. This is an example of where you want to insert cells and not an entire row, because a row goes across all the columns. I'm going to go ahead and select row 8, and I'm going to right click and delete it. And here's how you select cells and then insert them. I'm going to click on Baker, hold the Shift key, and click on 900 here. So that is the range B8 through G8. Now if I right click in the selected area and choose Insert, it's going to ask me, what would you like to do with the cells you have selected? I want to shift them down, and I'll click OK. And now you can see everything pretty much moved down one row. But look how it didn't affect this table over here. That's how you're going to put in individual cells. Now if I want to type someone in here, I can go ahead and put that new person in. This will be Mr. Newberry. He's going to have 150. 200, 125, and 275. And then if we want to get his total, we can actually use the fill handle and copy it from the one above it, and that way we've got his answer. That's a quick overview of how to work with adding and deleting rows, columns, and cells. Now that you know how to add, delete columns, rows, and cells, let's talk a little bit about changing the column row widths. Let's go ahead and move over to section 2, and I'll show you how that's done. Okay, we're in module 6 and we're all the way down now to section 2. I want to talk to you a little bit in this section about how to change your column width and your row width. What's going to happen is if you don't have enough space in a particular column for numbers, for example, you're going to end up seeing these little pound symbols. And if you don't have enough space as far as the rows go, then you might cut off some of the text that's in a particular cell. Let me go ahead and show you a little bit about how to change your column and row widths. Let's talk first of all about text. A good example in this exercise is if you look in column A, row 3, this text says Books and Beyond Northeastern Region. You'll notice it's all in A3, none of it's in B3, because when you click here you'll see there's nothing in the formula bar. Text will spill over to the next cell provided it is empty, like in this particular case. Numbers will not do that. Now, if I happen to type something in B3, for example, notice how it chops off whatever is over in A3. Now, I can make the column a little bit wider so that I can see everything there. And I can do that just by putting my mouse between the headers at the top. See how if you put your mouse between the A and the B there, you get the double black arrow? And then you can actually drag this as far as you need it to go in order to see everything that's in that particular column. Now you'll notice in this particular case, it made column A really wide, so that's really not going to work for me in this case, but that's how you would do that. I'm going to go ahead and delete that 5. And I'm going to move this back over a little bit. Something else you can do is if you know that you need a column to be a little bit wider, instead of dragging that left or right, you can actually double click that line that separates column A and B. And what that will do is look down the entire column, find the widest piece of information and make your column just that wide. Because a lot of times you might make it wide and it looks great, and then you get further down and you need it to be even wider. Sometimes it'll make a column smaller. For example, if I look here at February and I come up and get the line that separates the D and the E, notice it made it a little bit smaller. See that? So you can always work with your column widths that way. Now let me go back and just make that smaller again because it's way too wide. The other thing I want you to notice is that numbers will not spill over. Let's say I take, for example, March, and I happen to make it a little smaller like this. You'll see that eventually you're going to see these little pound symbols like this. And sometimes you'll only see one in that column because maybe that one cell only is the one that wasn't wide enough. But anytime you see these, that means that the column is not wide enough. Even if the one to the right of it's empty like this, it's still not going to spill over. Only text will spill over. I'm going to undo that. All you'd have to do is go ahead and make your column a little bit wider like we talked about. I'd probably get up on the line that separates column E and F, double click, and now you'll see that it's wide enough. That's pretty much all you need to know about changing your column and row widths. Well, that's going to wrap up Module 6. Why don't we go ahead now and move over to Module 7, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how to move your data around. We're going to do our cut, copy, and paste, and I'll also show you how to copy some formulas. Let's move over now to Module 7. Module 6 was all about inserting rows, columns, and cells. You're going to start by opening an exercise called Eastern Regions Report. I'm going to have you adding rows in here. You'll be adding a couple of rows at the top. I'm going to have you add some columns, and I'm going to have you add some cells in here. Once you get those rows and columns in, I'm going to have you delete them just to make sure you know how to delete a row or column. You're also going to insert a range of cells so that you can actually put the new salesperson in the Northeast region right up here. You'll have some figures you'll plug in for the new salesperson whose name is Newberry, and at the end, when you get over to column G, you'll be actually creating a formula to figure out Mr. Newberry's totals. When you get done with that, if you're comfortable, go ahead and save it and close the file, and you are done with rows, columns, and cells. Why don't you go ahead now and head over to Module 7, where we're going to talk all about moving your data. We are all the way down now to Module 7, and this is the module where I want to talk to you a little bit about moving your data around. This is Section 1, and I want to go through cut, copy, and paste with you. Cut, copy, and paste is a basic that you have to know for any program you're working in. It basically is a way for you to take your data from one place and put it in another place. Sometimes you actually want to move the data. Other times you just want to make a copy of it somewhere else. Let's go ahead and run through cut, copy, and paste, and then you'll be an expert in knowing how to move your data. In this exercise, we have Books and Beyond. The Northeast region is on the left, the Mideast region is on the right. I'd like to do a few things to make the exercise look a little bit nicer. One of them being, I'd like to take the information here and line it up with the edge of the table in column K, and maybe the same thing over here. I'll take what's in A3 and move it up to B2. The easiest way to do this is go ahead and select whatever you'd like to move. And you'll notice that if I put my mouse around the edges of this cell, which is the active cell, I'll get a white arrow. All I have to do now is hold the mouse down and drag it to the cell I'd like to drop it off in and let go. Pretty easy to do that. Let me do it over here. I'm going to select J3, point around the edges till I get the white arrow, and click and drag over to K2 and drop it off. And now you can see it looks a little bit nicer like this. Now we just call that moving. That's not cut, copy, and paste. What I'd like to talk to you about now is how to actually cut this Mideast region, and we'll place it down below the Northeast region. If you cut something, you're actually removing it from where it is and you're going to put it somewhere else. If you copy, you're making a copy of that information somewhere else. That's the difference. Now before I show you the 4 steps, we're going to be working with what we call the clipboard. And I want to show you how to turn the clipboard on. If you go over to your Home tab, and you'll see a clipboard grouping, and there's an arrow on the bottom right that you just click on to turn it on. And this is called the clipboard right here. The way the clipboard works is every time you cut or copy something, it will show up on this clipboard so that you can paste it in somewhere else. There is one clipboard for the whole computer, not one per program. So what that means is if I cut or copy something here, I'll be able to paste it into Word if I like, or into a web page I'm creating, wherever I'd like to put it in my computer. The clipboard is only wiped if you close all of Microsoft Office. You can close just Excel, but if you had Word still open, for example, then it would still be there. But once you close Word, that would close all of Microsoft Office, and then everything on the clipboard would be gone. There are 4 steps to cut, copy, and paste. Number 1, you're going to select whatever it is you'd like to cut or copy. Number 2, you're going to choose the cut or copy options. Number 3, you're going to click the mouse wherever you'd like to put the data. You do not have to put it in Excel, even though we're going to do that. Like I said, you can put it anywhere in your computer. And then the last thing is you're just going to paste. Let me give you an example of how that's going to work. Following the 4 steps, the first thing I want to do is select my entire Mideast region. In this case, it's going to be K2, and I'm going to follow this down and end it over in P16. K2, hold Shift, and click P16. That selects everything between those 2 points. Number 2 is I'm going to cut or copy. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can either come up here to where you see cut or copy, or you can just right click your mouse anywhere and you'll be able to choose cut or copy this way. I'm going to cut because I want to remove it. And you can see it looks like it's still here. It won't disappear until I actually paste it in. Number 3 says click your mouse where you'd like to put this. Now I'm going to click down here in B18. I could click over in Word and put it in, or somewhere else, like I said. Now when I go to paste this, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can right click and choose paste right here, or you can actually come over here and click on it from the clipboard. Either one's going to work. I'll go ahead and choose paste right here, and now you'll see it's moved it. It's no longer on the right, it's down below. Just so you will know, if you happen to paste by clicking over here, it leaves the original and you have to go back and delete it if you don't want it. When you're working with the clipboard, if there's something specific on the clipboard that you don't want anymore, you can actually click the down arrow and delete that one piece of information. But like I said, it's going to be deleted when you close all of Microsoft Office. Your clipboard only holds 24 items. Once you cut or copy that 25th item, it's going to pop up and say, would you like me to replace the first one? Just know that. You do not have to turn the clipboard on to actually do what we just did. We just turned it on so we could see what's there. I want to show you how this works between programs as well. I'm going to go ahead and open up Microsoft Word for a moment, and you'll see the clipboard there, and I'll show you how it works. This is a blank document in Microsoft Word. Do you remember the clipboard we turned on in Excel a few moments ago? If you notice, this is the exact same grouping right here, and I can hit this arrow to turn the clipboard on. And look, there's the data we just cut from Excel. All I have to do is click on it, and I've now pasted that into Word. Let me give you one more example. I'm going to go over to the internet and grab a picture real quick. Let's say I found this picture of this dog that I like. If I right click, you'll notice that it says copy image. Now just be aware that when you're on the internet, you want to be super careful about copying images because some of them may be subject to copyright. But the point is, I want to show you how to copy from anywhere in the computer. I'm going to choose copy image, and I'm going to flip back to Excel and see if it's on the clipboard. There it is. So if I want to put this dog over here, for example, all I have to do is go ahead and choose it, and you'll see there he is. Now, it's a whole nother subject when we start talking about sizing images and all of that, but the point is, you see how to cut or copy from anywhere in your computer. Let's go ahead and wrap this section up, and I want to talk to you a little bit in section 2 about copying formulas. Hey, welcome back. We're in Module 7, and we're talking in this module about how to move your data around. We've already done Section 1 where we went through the basics of cut, copy, and paste. I want to go ahead now into Section 2 and talk to you a little bit more about cut, copy, and paste, some additional options, and how they apply to formulas. Let's jump right in, and I will show you how to copy your formulas. In this exercise, if we look down at row 12, we have a formula here in cell C12. I'm going to double click to show it to you. And we haven't really talked a lot about formulas, but this one basically says add everything between C6 and C10. If I wanted to add this column, I would be saying add everything from D6 through D10. So basically it's pretty much the same except the column's different. You have the ability in Excel to copy your formulas using what's called the fill handle. The easiest thing to do is if the first formula is correct, click on it and drag the fill handle across this way, and that will actually copy that formula to the cells across. When I look at these, you'll notice this one says D6 through D10. This one will say E6 through E10 and all the way across. And I could do the same thing for these as well, and for this last one. And that's a really quick way to copy your formulas. A little term that I want you to get familiar with for later. In each of these, when we copied across, Excel changed the column in the formula for us. There is a term for that. It is called relative reference. Excel will change the column or row relatively so that the answer stays correct. Let me show you up and down what I mean. When we look at G6, for example, this one is saying add across, and it says add C6 through F6. The one below it says C7 through F7, so this one changed the row automatically. When you go down and use the fill handle, the row will change automatically for you. You're going to learn later that you don't always want it to do that, but that term that I want you to remember is called relative reference. Now let me go back to this for a second. I'll just delete this one. I could, if I wanted to, have just right-clicked on this one, chosen copy, and I could right-click on this blank one and then choose paste. That would certainly work, but I'd have several to do that with, and it would just be very time-consuming to do that. Now I did want to show you that there are several other options when you're pasting. Let me go ahead and select this whole table, and I'm going to copy this. Now if I just come over here and right click, these are actually all of your paste options right here, and you can see a preview as I move across them, but I want to go through them real quick so you'll know what they mean. This first one is the regular paste that you'll use most of the time. The second one will paste the values. Okay, I'm going to click on that and just show you what I mean. Now at first glance, this looks just like this. But here's what I want you to notice. When I click here, there's no formula. It's just the value that was in that cell over here. Same thing all the way across with all of these. And that's what paste values means. Let me go back and copy this again. And I'll just slide to the right for a minute and show you a few other things here. Let's say I right click this time and look at the third one. That's called formulas, which is basically what the first one did in this case because we had formulas there we were copying. Now let's talk about transpose, what this does. If you notice, the original had the months going across and the names going down this way. Transpose just flips that. Notice now the months go up and down and the names go across. So anytime you'd like to flip your column or row headings like that, use the transpose option. There were a couple more there, so let me go back and select this again for you. I'm going to right click and copy. Now when I look at this and I right click, this one says copy the formatting. The formatting is the bold and italics and the colors, all of that. So that would not actually copy the numbers or text, just the formatting. And you'll see later on as we go through here how this would apply. And then we'll talk about paste links a little bit later as well. I just want you to be familiar with all those options so that when you see them, you would know which one that you might want to choose. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap up Module 7. We've talked about moving your data around. Let's go ahead and really get into some of these formulas over in Module 8. I want to go ahead and start in Section 1 and give you an overview of how formulas work. We've been working in Module 7, and in this module we've talked about how to move your data, and we did that a couple different ways. We actually used the move feature where we were able to actually point around the edges of our active cell and move data. We did cut, copy, and paste, and I want you to go ahead and go through here and do a quick little exercise just to make sure you're okay with all of this. The first thing I'm going to have you do is open a file called Eastern Regions Report 2. It should look just like this when you get it open. I'm going to actually have you move this information up here so it lines up with the table nice and neat. You'll move this information over here. And then once you get done, we're actually going to take the Mideast region, which is on the right, and put it below the Northeast region. Remember, when you do cut and paste and you go to do the paste portion, just click in B18. You don't have to select the whole exact same size range. It'll fill down and across for you when you do that. Once you get that done, then you'll have a little bit of a nicer looking file, and I want you to go ahead and save it for me. And then we'll move over into Module 8 and talk about formulas and functions. We are ready to start talking about formulas and functions. We're all the way down to Module 8 now. This is Section 1. And in this section, I want to give you a quick overview of formulas and basically how they work. A formula is basically a mathematical calculation that tells Excel what to do. You can do simple things like add a column of numbers to really sophisticated things like statistics and things you would never even imagine. Excel's very, very powerful when it comes to formulas. Let's get a quick overview of how formulas work, and then we'll jump right in and start creating some formulas using functions. What you need to remember when you're writing formulas is that wherever you click the mouse, that's where the answer is going to appear. Formulas can be on the same sheet as the data, they can be on a separate sheet as the data, or they can be in a totally different file. And we'll be doing all of this as we go through these videos. But just to give you a quick overview and review, let's say that I wanted to add my numbers for January. I'm going to click in C12 next to total because that's where I want the answer to be, and I'm going to put in the equal sign. Remember that all formulas must start with an equal sign, no exceptions. I'm going to click on C6. I'm going to hit the plus sign, C7 plus, C8 plus, C9 plus, C10. And when you're finished writing your formula, you just hit the enter key and you will have your answer just like that. Now think about this. Even though I was able to click on each cell and tell Excel that I'd like to add another number, if I have 1,000 numbers to add, do you think I want to count all the way to 1,000? That's just going to take me all day long to do that. We're going to have other ways we can write formulas using functions. A function is going to be a word we use in our formula to tell it what to do. Another example of a super basic one where we're adding is, let's say we go over here to column G and I want to add up all of the figures for this line. I'm going to start with equals. I'm going to click on the 110, which is in C6, plus because I have another one. Then I have D6 plus because I have another, E6 plus and then F6 and I'll enter. And now I've got that one. That's going to give you a quick overview of how basic formulas are written. I really want to take you now over into the second part of this, and let's talk about how to use functions, because that's really going to make your life a lot easier when you have a word that tells it what to do in your formula. Welcome back. We're working in Module 8 and we're talking about formulas and functions in this particular module. We did a real quick overview of formulas in Section 1. Now that we're in Section 2, I want to actually talk to you a little bit about creating formulas using functions. A function is basically a word that tells it what to do in your formula, and I'm going to go through all of these with you and show you how this works. Let's flip over to Excel and we'll write some more formulas. We already added up January. We did this manually by clicking inside of each of the cells we wanted to add, but that was the long way to do it. I'm going to go ahead and hit delete here and talk to you a little bit about using functions in your formulas. A function is a word that you use in your formula to tell it what to do. There are over 200 functions built into Excel. The most common of the 200 is the word sum, S-U-M, which basically means to add. Typically, if I ask students if they've ever written a formula before, they'll say yes, and they'll say someone showed them how to do this. Notice that I'm under the Home tab, and there's this Auto Sum button right here. You're also going to find that same button under the tab that says Formulas. I'd probably use it under the Formulas tab. You'll see it right here, because we'll also be looking at some of these other options that have to do with formulas as well. I'm going to click the Auto Sum button, and notice that it put a formula in for me. And do you notice it didn't put the answer in? It put the formula in and it's just sitting there because it wants to make sure this is exactly what I want. Now notice it's assuming I want to add everything above where I was clicked. Notice it also included row 11, which has nothing in it. That won't affect anything as far as the answer goes in this case, but if I did add a number in C11, it would become part of my answer. If this is what I want, I just hit the Enter key. If it's not, let's say I didn't want 11 in there, I would just drag through what I do want, just like this, and then hit the Enter key. And now you can see I have the exact same number I had earlier, except I didn't have to manually tell it to add each one of these. So if you notice the way the formula reads now, it says I want to add the range C6 through C10. And that's the easiest way if you want to add a range of numbers that are all together. Now let me show you what happens when you go over to the next one, because I need February as well. If I come up and hit Auto Sum again, you'll see that again it assumes that I want to add everything above this. I'm going to go ahead and just hit the Enter key, and now I've got 965. Now watch what happens when I do the third one here. I'm going to hit Auto Sum, and notice it assumes I want to add everything to the left of where I'm clicked. I don't. I'm trying to add everything above it. So I'll just click and drag the range I do want to add, and then hit the Enter key. Now if it were me doing this, I would have done the first one and just used the fill handle and dragged across to copy my formula, but I did want to show you some other ways to write this formula. I also wanted to show you this little green mark that you see right here and what that actually means. If you know how grammar check works in Microsoft Word, it's very similar. It's letting me know that the formula I have here may be wrong. And the reason it says that is because it's looking at the one to the left of it and it knows it's different. When you have an error, if you notice, if you look where this exclamation point is, it tells me the formula in this cell differs from the formulas in this area of the spreadsheet. This one over here was 6 through 10. When I look at this one, it's 6 through 11. It's not hurting a thing, my answer is still correct, but if I wanted to fix it, I could go ahead and pick one of the choices from this drop-down list. The one I'd probably choose is to copy the formula from the left. There you go. The answer is the same, but now it includes 6 through 10. The last way I wanted to show you this is if you, before you ever write your formula, select everything you'd like to add and the blank one for the answer, then you can go up to Auto Sum and it will just give you the answer because it doesn't have to guess what it is you're trying to add. I could also do the same thing from left to right. If I wanted to go ahead and select all of these as an example, I've got all the cells I'd like to add and the blank ones over here for the answer. I can hit Auto Sum and there I have the answer as well. Now I've got one more down here. There's several ways I can do this. I can actually copy this formula using my fill handle, or I could have hit Auto Sum and added everything above. And that's actually a really good way to check and see if this total answer is correct, to do it each way, and if you get the same answer, then you know it's the right answer. Now let's go down and talk about averages. The word that you want to use here is the word average. If I type equals the entire word average and then my open parenthesis, I can drag through my range and then I can hit the enter key, and I've done it the exact same way. The word high means when I'm looking at this range of numbers, what's the highest number? The word I'm going to use for that is the word max. I'm going to type equals the word max, open my parenthesis, and then I can drag through the range and I should get 220. Now let's talk a little bit about these functions and where they come from. Let me go ahead and just select this range again because I wanted to show you that if you have a range selected, you can look down at the bottom here and see the 6 most common functions and the answers. And these aren't going to put the answer anywhere, it's just for you to know. I happen to have the average turned on. There's a count. Count counts the number of cells you have selected. The numerical count will count the ones with numbers in them. Min means what's the lowest number in my range. And if you had max there, it would mean what's the highest number in the range. And of course, sum means add. If I right click on any of these, you'll see right here in this area are the 6 most common. The ones I've checked are the ones that you're seeing down there at the bottom. So if I don't want one of these, I can just uncheck it. And you'll see now I've only got a couple of them down there. But those are the 6 most common functions right here. And you can't change that. Average, you're going to add all the numbers and divide by the number of cells you have selected. And I told you about the rest of these so you know what those mean. Now remember, a range can be 2 cells as long as they're adjacent. If they're not adjacent, you're not going to see anything down here. If I just click randomly somewhere, you'll see there's nothing down here to look at. Now let me go back to C12 and I'm just going to hit delete here. I want to take you through your ribbon to show you where all of these functions happen to live. You can use this little FX here, which is insert function, or you can come up here where it says insert function and use it that way. I did tell you that there are over 200 built-in functions in Excel, and I wanted to show you that they're all right here in this list. Now when you start looking at this list, you'll notice that currently I'm looking at a category called most recently used. These will be the last ones that were used in my computer. This makes it easy if you have several that you use on a regular basis. You can come right back and just click on them from here. But notice if I drop this list down, I can look at all of the functions and they're in alphabetical order. From there, I can take that list and look at just the ones that have to do with financial, just the ones that have to do with math and trig, statistics. You can kind of see the list here. Let me go ahead and click on all and just show you how you can look through this list to determine what each one of these actually does. When you're clicked on a particular function, it will tell you down here what that function does, or the definition. This one, for example, will return the inverse hyperbolic cosine of a number. And some of these may be way over your head because these can be very, very sophisticated. But looking down this list, let's talk about a few of these that you're going to use. Here's average, for example, and you know what that one means. Some of these that say if at the end, this means do the average if certain criteria is met. You'll see that there's a lot of them that have to do with what we call chi beta probabilities, you're going to see that there's some that have to do with ceilings, some of these have to do with columns. Here's one that you might use from time to time, concatenate. If you happen to have two columns of information that you want to put together in one column, and an example I see all the time is someone will have the last name in a column and the first name in another column, and they want to actually join them all together in their own column. You would use concatenate to do that. Let's go ahead and stop the video right here, and I'm going to have you go over into the second part of this, and we will continue looking at these different functions. Okay, welcome back. We're in Module 8 and we're talking about formulas and functions in this particular module. We've already gone through Section 1 where we got an overview of how formulas work, and we started working on Section 2 where I'm showing you how to create formulas using functions. We were in the middle of looking at those functions, so let's go ahead and continue so we can see some of the other functions that are in Excel. The last one we looked at was concatenate, which allows you to join two different columns of information together in one. So let's keep going. When you go down the list, another one that's going to be really popular is the count function. If you have a series of numbers and you know you should have 100 numbers and you select them all and it says you have 99, then you know you're missing someone. Here's one that counts all the blank cells. Here's one that will do a count if it meets certain criteria that you put in. Going down the list, we've got a couple more. Let's say, for example, you want to work with some date and time functions. You've got a couple right there. You've got some other functions going down, and let's keep on going until we see if an if statement is going to be something you're going to do on a regular basis. We'll be actually running one of these in a later module, but basically you have it checked to see if something you've typed in is true. If it is true, you have it do one thing. If it's false, you have it do something else. Going down the list, there's a few more that are going to be really popular. And let's just kind of get on down here to where we see sum. There was max, so just past max on the list, that finds the highest number in your range. Remember that min, M-I-N, will find the lowest number in your range. Let's say we've looked down the list and we come across the word sum, S-U-M, and we decide that this is the one we want because it adds all the numbers in a range of cells. I'm just going to hit OK. And now this is the part called function arguments. The arguments portion is basically the range portion, or where the numbers are you want to do something with. Notice it assumed C6 through 11. I can leave it there, or I can change that last one there to a 10 because I do want C6 through 10. Notice it shows me all the values in those cells, and it gives me the result right down here. I'm going to come back in a minute and tell you about number 2, but for now I'm going to click OK. And there's the exact same formula we wrote using the auto sum, or we could have written it by hand. The reason you have that number 2 field was because what if you're going to add two different ranges? Let's say for whatever example over here, I'd like to add January and March. What I would do is I would go to Insert Function. I would find Sum from the bottom of the list here. Notice if I click here, I can hit S and I'll go to the S's. I'm going to find sum. When I click OK, it's going to assume the range, and I said I wanted January, so that's my first range. Now I'm going to click where it says number 2, and I'm going to drag through March. And that's why you have multiple fields. I could even add a third range if I wanted, and it would keep on going. But that's what that extra field there is for. Let me go ahead and cancel out of that. I'm going to go ahead and use my fill handle and copy across to get my averages, and my fill handle for the highs to copy across to get those. I wanted to briefly tell you about these buttons right here. They may look familiar. This is your function library. If you remember when I took you into the Insert Function button, there were several different categories I told you that you could pick from. You've got financial, date and time, math and trig, and you'll see a lot of these right here. It's just a quick way if I don't want to come all the way back into this Insert Function window and I'm looking for a particular function that I know happens to be under financial, for example, I can just grab it right from the drop down here. Now, one more thing that I wanted to point out. When we were looking at this exercise, we had done all of these formulas right here. But if you notice, we have no formulas down here at the bottom. And I don't have to go down here and actually write new formulas. I can actually copy these and paste them down here. All I have to do is right click and copy, go down to the bottom where it says total, and then right click and paste. And the reason this works is because of that relative reference we talked about earlier. It knows to change the column or row relatively so that the answer is correct. When you do this, always check one answer. If one's right, they're all right. If one's wrong, they're all wrong. And when I look at this particular one, it does refer to 22 through 26, so that is correct. That's going to give you a quick overview of how to use your functions when you're writing formulas. We've got one more section in this particular module we need to look at, and I want to look at section 3, which is the absolute values, and show you how those work. I'll see you over in section 3. We are working in Module 8, and we've been talking a lot in this module about different formulas and some of the different functions in Excel. We've had a quick overview of formulas. We've gone through and looked at a ton of different functions, and now I want to talk to you about something called absolute values. I've mentioned to you a couple of times the term relative reference, and that's where Excel will automatically change the column or row so the answer is correct. I did mention to you that you're not always going to want to do that, and this is an instance where you would want to create an absolute value. Let me flip over and I'll show you what an absolute value is and why you'd want to use it. This exercise is very similar to the one we've been working in. This is that same company, Books and Beyond, and they have an Australian division of the company and a European division of the company, and they're tracking pretty much the same information as far as the salesperson and their figures for all their quarters and their totals. But now we see something new. It looks like they'd like to give them a commission as well, and they're going to give them a commission rate of 15% that you see up here. What I want to do is, first of all, go back and review relative reference so you can see what that is, and then we'll write a formula to figure out the commission. Remember that relative reference basically means that when you write a formula, Excel will automatically know to change the row if you go up and down, or the column if you go across. So all of these formulas right here would be the exact same, except that the row right here would be different. When we look at our columns, all of these across this way will be the same, except that the column will be different. There are some times when you don't want to do that, and this is a prime example. Let's go ahead and click over here in H8, and I want to figure out Mr. Long's commission. Remember, it's going to be a 15% commission based on his total. And the easiest way to do this is just hit the equal sign on your keyboard. We're going to take G8, which is Mr. Long's total, and we're going to multiply it times G3, which is the commission rate. I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter key, and you'll see his commission is $176.25. And let me just make a comment here. A lot of times people think that you have to have a word or a function in every formula, and that is not the way it is. Think about this one. All I want to do is take one cell times another. There's not really a word for that, and I wouldn't need one anyway because there's no range here. So don't get caught up on that. Make your formulas as easy as possible. But let me show you what's going to happen in this case if I use my fill handle and just copy this down. Look how I have zeros. Let's go see why. Well, we know this one's correct, obviously, but let's look at this first one. This one is taking G9, so it did move down like it should. But look, it also went down up here to cell G4, and there's nothing there. That's why I got 0. If I look at the one below that, again, it went down, G10, that's correct, but look up here, it's G5, that's not correct. So what's happening is it's moving down like it should to make the answer what it thinks should be correct. But what we want is a little different this time. We want the total to move down in the formula, but we never want G3 to change. What we're going to do is in the formula itself, we're going to make G3 what we call absolute. The way you do this is make sure you're clicked in the formula where the G3 is. It doesn't matter if you're in front of the G, behind the 3, or in the middle of it, just as long as you're in G3. And you're going to insert dollar signs in front of the G and in front of the 3. Yes, you can type them, but you can also use on your keyboard your F4 key, and that will actually put those in for you. I'm going to go ahead and type mine in right here real quick, and what you're going to see is that I'm going to actually hit the enter key, and now I've got my same answer, but now it's absolute. The way you actually read this is you want to say G8 times the absolute value of G3. If I copy these down now, notice they're all going to say G9 times the absolute value of G3. This one will say G10 times the absolute value of G3. And that's how you do an absolute value. Now, one thing I just want to give you a little heads up on. In Module 12, we're going to talk a little bit about working with names. You do have the ability, if you'd like, to not have this 15% anywhere on this sheet, and you can still have it do these calculations for you. And we'll come back and use this exercise when we get ready to do that. Well, that's all there is to working with absolute values. Let's go ahead and wrap up Module 8 and move over to Module 9 and talk about working with our sheets. In Module 8, we did a lot with formulas and functions, and I want to make sure that you can write some super basic formulas when it comes to working with your spreadsheets. What I'm going to have you do is open this file called Eastern Regions Report, and we're going to put a lot of formulas in here. I'm going to have you guys start by clicking in C12 and adding up January, and then you can copy that across. You'll do the same thing for averages and the highs as well. Once that's done, we'll come over to column G and figure out the totals across for each person and also the commissions. Remember, when you figure out the commissions, you're basically taking your total times this commission rate to get an answer. And also remember that it will have to be an absolute value. If you don't create the absolute value, when you copy the formula down, you'll get zeros for your answers. Once you get all the answers in here, you're going to copy every single one of them down to this Mideast region. And I've got instructions over on the Word doc on exactly what to do. Well, good luck with that. It's not really that hard, but just take a few minutes and just make sure you know how to do this before you move on to Module 9, working with sheets. All right, we've made it all the way down now to Module 9, and in this module I want to talk to you about how to work with your sheet tabs that you see at the bottom when you open a workbook. You can actually add sheets, you can delete those sheets, and you can rename those sheets. Let's go through and talk a little bit about how sheets work, and I will show you how to add, delete, and rename those sheet tabs. We have an exercise here that has multiple sheets with information on them, and I want to take a peek at what this looks like before we get started. This is the Australian division of the company, and if you notice, they've listed each item that they're selling, the figures for quarters 1 through 4 here, and they've just totaled them down on row 9. Now notice that we're on sheet 1 at the bottom. Let's see what's on sheet 2. All I have to do is click on it, and I'll flip to that sheet. This looks like the European division. If you notice, the setup's the exact same, except these numbers are different, which obviously changes our totals. Let's see what's on sheet 3. Looks like the North American division. Sheet 4 looks like the South American division. And sheet 5 looks like a summary. What we're going to end up doing in section 3 is writing a three-dimensional formula here. That would be a formula that goes to the other 4 sheets and gives me a total here on this 5th sheet. But meanwhile, let's go back to sheet 1 for a moment. If I asked you which sheet was Europe, would you remember that it's sheet 2? Probably not. So the best thing to do is go ahead and rename your sheet tab so that you know what's on each sheet. There are a couple ways to do this, but the easiest way is to double click on the words sheet 1 at the bottom. That will select it, and then you can type right over it. I'll just go ahead and put each of the sheet tab names in here. Sheet 2 is Europe. Looks like sheet 3 is North America. Looks like sheet 4 is South America. And sheet 5 is Summary. Now we know that when we click on the Europe sheet, we're going to see the European division of the company. There are some things you can do as far as adding sheets. Let's say you wanted to add a sheet in between North and South America. If I select the South American sheet, I can right click and I can insert a sheet in front of that sheet. It will ask you when you do this, what is it you're trying to insert, and you want a worksheet. So I'll just click OK, and now you'll see it's using the name Sheet 1 since we're not using that name anymore. Now there is a plus sign all the way over here, and if I click on that plus sign, you'll notice I've added another sheet there. So that's another way to put a sheet in front of the sheet that you're currently on. If you want to delete a sheet, you just right click on that sheet tab and you can choose delete from the list. If you delete a sheet, you cannot undo it. Just know that. I'm going to go ahead and delete sheet 1 as well. I'm going to right click and choose delete, and now that sheet's gone too. Now I do have the ability to move the sheets around. What if I decided that I'd like North America to be the first sheet? Notice how if I just click on it, I can drag the sheets left or right. You'll see a little down arrow, and when you let go, that's where it's going to be. Let's say I move this back, and I'll move it to the right of South America. Be really careful about moving your sheets on the other side of summary, because when we talk about our three-dimensional formulas, we're going to be saying that we want to add a range of sheets, and if you've moved this on the other side, it won't be in the range. Just be really careful about that. That's a quick way to go ahead and add sheets, delete sheets, and rename and move your sheets around. Why don't we go ahead now and go over into section 2, and I'll show you some additional sheet tab options you have. Welcome back. This is section 2 of module 9, and in this particular module we are talking about working with the sheet tabs at the bottom of each of your workbooks. We've already learned how to add some sheet tabs, delete them, and rename them. Now I'd like to go in and show you some of the additional sheet tab options you have when you're working with each of those sheets. We've already talked about some of the options you can do with sheets as far as adding sheets. We talked about deleting sheets and renaming them, but let's go ahead and look at all the options available when you're working with your sheet tabs. If you're on any sheet tab and you right click your mouse, you're going to see a list of things you can do, starting with insert. We talked about the fact that you can insert a worksheet and it will actually go to the left of the sheet you have selected or in front of that sheet. You can also right click on a sheet tab and delete it. Remember, if you delete it, you cannot get it back, so make sure that's really what you'd like to do. You can also rename a sheet. Choosing rename this way just selects the sheet tab name, and that way you can type right over it. It's actually a little bit easier just to double click on the sheet tab name to do the same thing. Here you can move or copy. We did talk about the fact that you can pick up a sheet tab and move it left or right, but let's look at the options when you go this way. Here what you'll see is this is the name of the file that you're working in, and these are the sheet tabs in that particular file. If I wanted to take South America, the one I'm clicked on, and move it to the very front, I would choose Australia because it says before sheet and then click OK, and now look how it's moved that sheet tab. Now I'm going to right click on that again and go back to move or copy, because here's something that's really nice. Sometimes people ask me, can you take a sheet tab and actually copy it into another file like a blank workbook? And the answer is yes, you can. Let's say you want to copy South America, but this time what I want to do is put it in a new workbook. And I want to create a copy because I want to leave this one here and just make a copy in the new workbook. Now when I click OK, I want you to notice this is a brand new file. Notice it says Book 1 at the top, and notice we only have one sheet, and it's the one called South America. That's a really great way, instead of copying and pasting. A lot of times what happens when you copy and paste the data on one sheet into another file, you lose all your formatting, you lose your column widths and all that. Doing it this way, you don't lose any of that. I'm going to go back and close this, and we won't save it, and then we'll be back on the file we were working in. Alright, I'm going to right click again on South America, and I want to just mention the view code. if you click on this, it's actually going to take you into an entirely different program called Visual Basic. And you do have the ability to write some what they call VBA code and stuff like that to make Excel do different things. But I don't want you to get lost in here because this is programming, and if you happen to click on it accidentally, just go ahead and hit the X and close out of it. It's not actually part of Excel. All right, I'm going to right click again, and let me talk to you briefly about protecting the sheet. We will talk in a later module about protecting your file and protecting your sheet, but you do have the ability to create a password to put on this sheet so that when someone opens it, they have to know the password to get in. Notice you can also change the tab color. If there's a particular sheet, like maybe the summary sheet, and you'd like that sheet to stand out for some reason, change the tab color, and when you click on another tab, you'll see that there's where the color shows up. I can also hide a sheet. If you hide a sheet, you can see that it looks like the sheet is not even there. You can right-click and unhide a sheet. It will list the hidden sheets. You choose the one you want to unhide and you click OK. Some reasons for hiding a sheet might be, obviously you don't want someone to see that sheet. Let's say, for example, you've created a list with a drop-down, and this is a little more advanced than we are right now, but you can have drop-down lists in Excel. Well, those drop-down lists have to live somewhere. They can live on a sheet you've created, and then you hide the sheet so that others can't get in and actually mess with the list and screw it up. So that's a great example of why you might want to hide a sheet. Now I'm going to go back because you can also do one more thing. You can select all the sheets. And you can see when you do this that all of these turn white or they're selected so that whatever you do on one sheet now appears on all the sheets. To deselect all the sheets, you just click on any sheet tab and now you're on this one sheet tab only. Those are the options that you have when you're working with sheet tabs. Let's go ahead and wrap up this section, and I'm going to have you go over to section 3 where we're going to talk about three-dimensional formulas. We are going to wrap up Module 9 with Section 3 here. We've been talking about working with your sheet tabs, and now I want to talk to you a little bit about how three-dimensional formulas come into play. A three-dimensional formula is basically a formula that you write on one sheet, and it calculates data from other sheets and puts the answer on this sheet that you're on. And we call those 3D formulas or three-dimensional formulas. Let me go ahead and show you how three-dimensional formulas are actually set up. In this exercise, if you remember, I told you that all of the sheets were set up exactly alike. Each one was listing the items they were selling, the figures for quarters 1 through 4, and totals down in row 9. This area right here is the only thing that's different on each sheet because that's where the numbers are for each of the divisions. Now if we click over on the summary sheet, we're going to be actually putting the answers right in here. We're going to tell Excel to go to each of these 4 sheets at the bottom and add up B4 and then put the answer here on this summary sheet. Now a couple things to review before we actually do this. If you remember when we were in section 8 and we talked about formulas, one of the things we talked about was how to select a range. Remember, a range means you have a starting cell, you're going to hold the shift key, and then you'll click the ending cell so that it gets everything in between. You need to know that because when you're writing a three-dimensional formula, you're going to be selecting a range of sheets instead of a range of cells, but you'll do it the exact same way. If I wanted to select the sheet Australia all the way to South America, I'm going to make sure Australia has been clicked on. I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to click South America. And you can see the sheet tabs all look like they've been selected when you do that. If you type something on a sheet tab that's part of a range of sheets that's selected like this, it's going to be on every sheet. Let me give you a little example. I'll put Books and Beyond here. Now I've just typed it on the Australia sheet, but notice I can click North America and it's in the same place, South America it's in the same place, and so forth. I'm going to delete that. And then if you want to deselect a range of sheets, then you just go ahead and click a sheet not in the range. Now let me go back to summary and I'll show you how to write a three-dimensional formula. I'm going to start in B4. What I want to do is add cell B4 from all 4 of these sheets and put the answer on the summary sheet. You're going to start with equals so that it knows it's writing a formula. We're going to put in the function the word sum, which means add, and make sure you have the open parenthesis because remember all ranges have to be in parentheses. It's easy to forget that one step. Now I'm going to click on the first sheet that I want to add from. Then I'm going to click the cell I'd like Excel to add for me. And the only thing left now is to say add the rest of these sheets. To get the range, I'm going to hold Shift and click South America. Now I'm going to hit the Enter key. Don't click over on the summary sheet because then that will just replace whatever you typed in. I'm just hitting Enter and now I've got 900. Now let me open up this formula so you can see what it looks like. Notice it says you want to add the range Australia through South America, and on all 4 of those sheets you want to add cell B4. Let me do a couple more so you can get the feel for how this works. We'll do our software. I'm going to start with equals. I'm going to put in the function, in this case the word sum. Make sure you have the open parenthesis. Go to the first sheet you want to add from. Click in the cell you'd like to add. Hold Shift and click South America. Then just hit the Enter key. One more. I'm going to add the furniture. I'll start with equals. I want to have the word sum, which is the function in there, and then an open parenthesis. I'm going to click the first sheet I'm adding from. I'm going to click in B6, hold Shift and click South America, and then hit the Enter key. And you get the idea that you just do them all the exact same way. Now you can just do one and then use your fill handle to copy the others down. Once you've copied them down, then you can pick the fill handle back up and go across. But make sure that first one's correct because remember, if it's wrong, they're all going to be wrong. And this is something you just have to practice. Once you do 2 or 3 and you get it, you'll realize it's super easy to do. But just make sure you watch the video and go back through the exact steps that I did and you'll be able to do it perfectly. If you didn't have the 4 sheets set up the exact same, you would have to manually go to each sheet and tell it which cell to add. You wouldn't be able to do a range that way. Well, that's all I've got for you for Module 9, where we talked about working with those sheet tabs and the 3-dimensional formulas. Let's go ahead now and move to Module 10. We've got a lot of formatting that we want to do on these worksheets to make them look nice. We finished with Module 9 now, and we talked in this module about working with your sheets, and these are your sheet tabs that you see at the bottom of your file here. What I'm going to have you do is go through the first 5 of these sheets and rename each one to the actual division that they represent. Like this one would be Australia, this one would be Europe, and so forth. Sheet 5 is a summary sheet. Make sure you rename that as well. I want you to go ahead and add a sheet. I want you to add one in front of sheet 4. That's going to give you another sheet. Then I'm going to have you delete that sheet as well. Also, the summary sheet, I want you to make it red. You can just change the color of that tab so that that one stands out. The last thing I'm going to have you do is write a 3-dimensional formula. And if you remember, a 3-dimensional formula is one that spans several sheets. What you're going to do is on this summary sheet starting in B4, you're going to write a formula that tells Excel to add B4 from all of these sheets and put the answer on sheet 5, which will be summary. If you forget how to do this, go back and look at section 3 where we went through 3D formulas. Once you've got that down pat, then you can move over to Module 10 and we'll look at formatting our worksheets.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To download the Excel course exercise files and complete the instructor exercises, click over there. And click over there to watch more free Excel videos from Simon Says It.